Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening. It's a little bit late today, I know, but it's a little bit, but there's a special reason why I'm late today. A little bit past 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And why in the world would I be late tonight? Because my brother Spike was taking some time. Spike Cohen, the man, the myth, the legend, was taking some time this evening to have a debate with the ultra famous David Hogg, the man who survived, one of the young men who survived the Parkland shooting. So we had a debate in New Hampshire, the live free or die state. Perhaps not the best place for Mr. Hogg to go to, but he did. I will give him that. I didn't think he would do it. I got to tell you, I didn't think Mr. Hogg would do it, but he did. Happy that he did. And a little bit inside baseball, I actually reached out to Spike prior to this, and I said, hey, if you need a sparring partner, right, before this big debate, let me know. I'm happy to play the role of Mr. Hogg, and we can, do some sparring. He was like, no, thanks, but no. I was like, wow, he's feeling pretty confident. And tonight showed why. But I get it completely. No disrespect meant to Mr. Hogg for this. I'm just going to be very forward. It was not even close. If anyone watched this debate, I guess you can call it that, it wasn't even close. Mr. Hogg came completely and utterly unprepared, was not prepared for anything. I think this is what my gut tells me. He spends so much time around people who think like him that he just assumed he could just say the things and everybody would go, yay, he said the things, and therefore he's correct. That did not go over well. I got to hand it to Spike, though. Spike was very polite and nice. He was very good to him. So kudos to Spike for that. He could have been a jerk, and he was not. I'm going to give you a couple of pieces. I'll show you a couple of spots that I liked, and how people often debate or try to push you off too. The crowd was not on Hogg's side either. So yes, let me grab a couple of these if I can. Mike says, Hogg dodged the most essential question at the end, but it was his tactic throughout. What do you think, Larry? Yes, you are correct. What Hogg does not well, believe it or not, he does often, but not well. What he does is he doesn't actually answer the question. He just says, see, look, it's obvious, right? And then talks about and drugs and stuff and racism and stuff. He does that a lot, right? So it's clear where his political leanings lie. That doesn't make him bad. I'm just saying, there we go. Chuck says the 2018 ketchup mustard debate was more interesting. That was run by my youngest daughter, Josephine. Yes, you are correct, Chuck. It kind of was. But yes, all right, let me grab a couple of pieces. By the way, before I do that, I'm going to ask you, click the button that is like. Do that. Click the button that is like. It does matter. Please do so. Let me bring up a couple things if I could. Let me start with the opening piece, and that will give you a bit of what this was like just by me giving you just that one piece. Let me see if I can grab this here with a little bit of sound. I think you guys would like sound, I think, too. And here we go.
3 minutes from each of our debaters.
This is his opening.
David, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't know if I even need 3 minutes to talk. I think most of you know where I stand on this.
Now, when he says that, that's showing that he did not prepare, right? I don't think I need that much time, baby. Now, it doesn't mean you should. Often if people watch me or debates, I don't have notes either, right? But I have a clue what I'm going to say. I've done this before. I know what I'm going to say. He was like, I'm just going to say stuff because you guys know what's up.
I would like to address one thing in general, though, which is that my view of addressing gun violence is not solely about addressing how somebody gets a gun.
This is brilliant, by the way.
But it's only that. It is only part of it. I believe that we also need to address why somebody feels the need to kill somebody else.
Now, this, by the way, is a smart move. Why? Because what he does immediately is say, well, it's not just this. So just in case Spike cleans my clock and wrecks me on the actual issue that we came in to talk about, which is gun control, it's about gun control. And the first thing he says, well, it's not just that. Okay, so it's not just what you came here to talk about. This is a good move. This actually means his family and friends can see it and go, well, there's other things. Brilliant way of starting. because he knows he's in trouble.
I think most of us in this room actually agree on, including those who took the poll. Part of why I say that is because I'll acknowledge that no law is perfect by any means, but there still is the need to have them in a society with order, and that applies.
Absolute straw man. He just goes, see, now you guys want no laws. Not what anyone said.
To guns as well. No right is unlimited. There's a reason why you can't scream fire in a crowded theater in the first place.
Oldest thing, not true. Spike deals with that. But again, same idea, just going off on, see, not everything is 100%. No one said that.
But that also means that we have to address, as I said, why somebody picks up a gun. In my case in Parkland, that looks like addressing the fact that the shooter at my high school had repeatedly, he was a 19-year-old that had repeatedly, I'm just checking the time, that had repeatedly threatened to shoot up my high school. He was reported to local law enforcement, he was reported to the FBI, and had the police called on him over a dozen times before the shooting. Despite all of that, he was still able to legally obtain an AR-15.
Something happened.
And as a result, he shot 34 of my classmates and killed 17 of my classmates and teachers. And personally,
now I feel bad for this guy going through that. I'm not just saying that, right? I mean, if you've been through tragedy, and some of us here, I'm sure, have been through some tragedy. If you've been through tragedy, it does affect you, right? It does mess with your head, particularly if you're young. Of course it does. I'm sure it messed with his head, right? I'm sure it did. But all the people who it messed with their heads didn't decide to be the advocate that he is or the activist that he is. He has chosen to channel that trauma that he dealt with into activism. And not always a bad thing, often very powerful and good, not against this. But now when you come and talk about a serious issue that affects other people, other people's rights, right? The Second Amendment, guns, self-defense, you cannot fall back to feel sorry for me because people I love were killed. You can do that if you're trying to appeal for maybe, you're doing a don't be like me speech or a motivation speech, 100%. But no, he begins immediately with, don't beat me up. That's how he's starting out, trying to create himself as initially as a victim, as a weaker partner immediately. I'm a weaker partner. Don't beat me up. So now he's looking for sympathy immediately. Again, for who he is, not a bad tactic, but if you're savvy, you see right through it.
I've grown up around guns my entire life. My dad was an FBI agent. My first time shooting guns was when I was in 4th grade. This may be news to some of you, but I was even in the shooting club at my college. I understand the power behind these weapons, but I also understand that there's responsibility that comes with that in the first place. And I don't see that why there is any need why somebody who repeatedly threatens to shoot up a high school should be able to legally continue to own or even have an AR-15 in the first place. I don't believe that's an affront to anybody's civil liberties. I believe it's actually protection of all of ours to our right, to things like domestic tranquility, as are also talked about.
We have a right to domestic tranquility.
And I think there's just a lot of nuance that has to be had in this conversation. I don't want this to be a screaming match between Spike and I know that he doesn't want that either.
If you knew that, why'd you say that? Again, this is a please don't beat me up. His opening statement literally says, please don't beat me up. And luckily Spike didn't do it.
As entertaining as
right. Spike did not fall for the bait. He could have been like, okay, you clearly aren't prepared. Let me wipe the floor with you. Let me slaughter you. He did not. And he was trying to stop.
That might be for the 12 watch parties that you've set up, apparently.
Oh, look at that.
But
he brings up what you'll see, and this is a common thing. This is more done on the left than the right. The right does it sometimes, but the left does this constantly. The left will constantly say, your arguments are wrong because you are somehow invalid. I must personally attack you or make you invalid. Therefore, all your arguments are wrong. So he'll do it a couple times in this debate. The first thing he does right now. Well, you have 12 watch parties. That's why people are gonna like you and clap and stuff, right? So you set this up. It's unfair to me, is how he opens up. Again, the entire opening he's decided is, don't beat me up. It's not fair. He's gone right to fairness immediately.
I really think that this is supposed to be a conversation. That's what I want to focus on. I respect Spike as a person.
Because I don't want to argue because I'll lose an argument. So let's make it a conversation. Please don't beat me up. You see, for 3 minutes, he's saying, I don't know what I'm going to say. So what I'll say is, please don't beat me up. As I was watching this, is all I was thinking. He's just going,
even if I have disagreements with him. And I think the only way that we're going to make progress on this issue is addressing, the parts where we don't agree, which we hear all the time, and it's very entertaining. But the thing that I'm most interested in is making progress here and figuring out what we can agree on so that we can move forward as a country, make ourselves safer,
See, he's
and
above
actually
the
do whatever we
fray.
can in the interim period while we continue having these debates to focus on what we can agree on to make progress. Not
above
because
the
it benefits
fray.
one party or the other or anything like that, but
See,
because it
the
benefits the
parties.
future of this country and ensuring that nothing like Parkland ever happens again. That's why I'm here today. It's not to get in a screaming match. It's not to spew a bunch of.
No one said any of that. He just made that up. Spike didn't say, I'm going to kick your ass. None of that happened. Spike doesn't do that anyway. He just made that up because he's just, just don't fight. I'm above the fray. That's all he was.
Talking points or anything like that. I didn't even bring a piece of paper with me because I wanted to just have a conversation.
No, that's not why. It's because you you couldn't prepare well enough. That's the real reason. That's fine.
Thank you.
Should we clap? I guess we should. Yes,
Right.
that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. No screaming allowed. And to be
Spike was
fair,
joking.
I
Perfect.
actually didn't set up the watch parties, David. We just found out there were watch parties, so we let people know about them. So no, I
See, that's the part. He wanted to bring that up, but he did it nicely. I don't think I would have been nice in this regard. I think I would have told him to stop setting up the straw man. I would have asked him, who said this was going to happen? Did anyone threaten you? I would have been more like, did somebody threaten you? Oh, nobody threatened you. Okay, so why would you say that? I would have been a bit more aggressive on that than Spike was. Spike was not as aggressive as I would have been because I want to stop him from trying to hide right away. So I want to move a little bit ahead, if I could, to a part where he then moves into talking about what I love what Spike brings up. He brings up another piece, which is Spike talks about, see if I can grab this here. He brings up the idea of what the Second Amendment was actually about.
to look at what the founders said. And so let's start with the guy who wrote the Second Amendment. Whereas civil rulers may attempt to tyrannize, and as the military forces, which must be occasionally raised to defend the country, might pervert their power to the injury of their fellow citizens, the people are confirmed by this article, the Second Amendment, in their right to keep and bear their private arms. The writer of the Second Amendment was very clear. This is confirming a pre-existing individual natural right for you to keep and bear arms, and he's explicitly mentioning the fact that you should be able to do that, if necessary, to rise up against your own government. Keep in mind, this was a revolutionary government that was being created right after a violent revolution to remove the previous rulers. That is the intent of the Second Amendment. I don't know of any founders who indicated that they were mandating the use of fire.
That was another thing that I guess I could have kept going, but it was a long debate. I don't know if we're going to watch the entire debate this evening, but I'm going to go through chunks of it. What David talked earlier in this piece about was, if we had a regular militia, that means that we have to mandate you having guns and the government would have to come in and check your house. That's never been brought up. Not a thing. Hogg made that up. Again, he's made up he makes up a couple things. He talks about, the AR-15, how that's a weapon of war, and you can't have them anymore because times have changed in the last 50 years. Well, the AR-15 is based with the M16, which was made in the 60s, which is 70 years ago, right? 60 years ago. So he did a couple of things like that didn't make any sense, and Spike was very good to him. I mean, I got to give him that. Joe says, Spike was nice throughout the debate. Yes, that's true. And I'm glad. I'm not complaining about this at all. He did a very good job. The Libertarian lady says Spike Cohen was stellar. Yes. And I got to say, I know a lot of, Spike was the right guy for this. There are a lot of libertarians who would have gone for Hogg's throat. And it would have made libertarians feel good, but it would have made us look bad, if that makes any sense. Because Hogg would have gone to, please don't beat me up. Why are you beating me up, evil libertarian? He would have fallen back to that. He would have. Spike didn't take the bait. Well done, Spike. Some libertarians would have taken a bait and gone right for his throat. And again, beating him and being able to go back to libertarians and go, see, I wiped the floor, I owned the lib or whatever, but we would have looked bad. Spike looked great. He did exactly the right thing. He did not go for the throat. He just brought receipts. Literally, he brought receipts. So again, well done, Spike.
Firearms or the ownership of firearms. David, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on that if there was that did. I've not seen anything to that. It's that every person should be able to their own ability and volition, be able to be armed and trained in that, so that we have a large pool from which to draw for a militia if necessary.
Yes.
I want to address what David said. David is correct. Massachusetts is definitely on the lower scale of all violent crime, including that with a gun. Of the 10 lowest murder rates, Massachusetts is among them. 8 of the other states have permitless carry. So what it turns out is that this is a chart. I don't know if you guys can see this.
He brought
but
receipts.
in this chart, I hope you all have eagle eye vision. Those at home may be able to see it. This is the number of guns per people, or rate of gun ownership by in that state, and this is the violent. This is the gun murder rate. So not just the murder rate, but the murder rate by gun. And what you'll notice is it looked like I dropped a bunch of sprinkles on the page. There's no correlation between gun ownership or ease of access to guns and homicide rates.
That is your time.
And what he does here, this is the best part. Spike says, I'm not saying more guns equals safety. I'm not saying less guns equal safety. What I'm saying is gun laws don't equal safety. This is about gun control. That's what he said. Hogg later says, well, no, there's this. He's like, no, it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, you're saying gun control works. I'm showing you that gun laws, there's no correlation to whether there's more or less murders. There isn't. But in the top 10 states, 8 who basically have constitutional carry, well, 8 out of 10 are in the top 10 safest states when it comes to the murder rate. That's what he's saying. So I think it was done very well. And Hogg had to try to pretend like he was fighting somebody who wasn't that. So yes, I like that. David says a very good point. Own the libs hurts the LP. Agreed. Which is why you never see me do it. Which is why I'm glad Spike didn't do it. That's not what we're here to do, right? Not what we're here to do. I'm very happy it was him. It was the right thing. David goes on to say, Spike planted seeds in countless thousands of minds who have never heard a libertarian voice because we don't go into their communities. Spike will go to sleep tonight knowing he reached the remnant. Yes, absolutely true, David. I completely agree with you. I'm very good. That's why I'm doing a post-debate show. I'm happy. I was excited. I literally watched the whole thing live. I didn't want to do it live, right? Because I didn't want to mess up your experience. That's why I didn't do it live. Often I would do something like this live. I said, nope, I'm going to let you guys all enjoy. Then I'll come back afterwards and talk about this. Yes. Scientific Libertarian says, that was a great debate. I'm not sure I would call it a great debate, to be forward with you. I think Spike was great. I would have rather had Spike go up against somebody tougher, to be forward with you. I would have rather had Spike go. Again, no disrespect to Hogg, but he was weak. I'm being very forward. He was weak. He didn't come strong. He didn't come with data. He was being very angry about things. He wasn't that great, to be forward with you. So I wish look, Spike could have handled a better debater, right? Spike is a heavyweight. Hogg is maybe a middleweight. I'm probably giving him too much in that, but maybe a middleweight, probably more like a welterweight. Spike's a heavyweight. So Spike could have dealt with a heavyweight, and he used the lighter gloves, right? He was like, I'm not gonna drop you. I mean, I'm a heavyweight. I could drop you. He didn't. So I think he did great. But debate was okay. It wasn't great. So yes. And yeah. So anyway, let me keep going if I could.
If it would look like this if that were true. Anyway, go ahead.
David, a 30-second response.
And by the way, this debate itself, the moderator was terrible. The questions were weak. The timing was weak. It was run poorly. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that, but you know what? I do debates constantly. You never see my debates this bad, ever. When I moderate debates, they are squared away and good, and they work. This was at best mediocre. They might go, wait a minute, Larry, it's a university. So what? Get your best game on. Practice before, right? Get the right guy or gal to do it, or practice. It wasn't even run well, right? So that's a problem. It wasn't run well. Mike says, not a great debate as it was one-sided. Hogg brought nothing but feelings. I think you're right, Mike. I think you've hit it perfectly, right? Hogg brought a lot of feelings, and he tried to be dismissive. And this game often becomes a left-right thing often. Again, not always, but I see it often. the right, when they attack you angrily, will just do a personal attack on you and call you like unpatriotic or evil or mean or stupid or something like that. When the left attacks, they are dismissive in their attacks. Like, your stuff isn't real, you aren't qualified, you're ignorant. The attacks are different from each side. He did a bunch of those, and they were backhanded, right? They were backhanded. They weren't straight. They were often backhanded. So I completely agree. Looks like John agrees with you, Mike. He says Spike was classy, pure fact versus emotion. Spike counters so many falsehoods spewed by Hogg during this debate. Yes, my autocorrect spells that way. Yes, but I think you're right. I think John agrees with you, Michael. He was far more emotional than he was logical. Absolutely. Yes. So let me grab this one.
Taken a basic statistics class knows that there are 3 types of lies.
Here it goes.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's what I think that is.
Okay.
And let me explain.
So again, this is my point. He just dismisses it. He says, here's the facts that show there is no correlation. Hogg's answer isn't, well, no, let me explain what it really is, which if he had the details, he would do so. He doesn't. He goes, lies, damn lies, statistics. Yet he'll come up with statistics. So he will use statistics, right? However, he dismisses his.
Why? Sorry. I have to, first of all, can I see that? So I can understand the data.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this has
so now he says, can I see that? So he dismisses them, but then realizes, oh, I don't have an argument. Can I see it so I can find a way to dismiss this? Because what you just said makes me look really bad, and I really can't fight the argument. So what I'll do instead is I'll try to find a way of dismissing it. And he actually does at one point. So yes, he actually does. I'll give you another piece where he steps up a little bit later. He talks about some more stuff. Let me grab one more for you if I could. I'm gonna go through a couple of these if I think you'll enjoy some of the ones that I picked. Maybe I'll do the entire thing one day, but it's like a 2-hour debate. And if I do it, that means it'll be a 4-hour show. Maybe on a weekend. Maybe I do one on a weekend, maybe. But this is a good piece here too.
One in here, what the history of the majority deciding what the minority is or is not allowed to do look like. By the way, part of what that looks like is gun control. In the Dred Scott decision in 1857, Chief Justice Taney said, well, of course we can't treat black people like people in this country. If we did, they'd be able to own firearms and carry them wherever they wanted.
Now, the brilliance of this, I mean, Spike, some of you on the right get mad at me when I use racism to validate why gun control is bad. Because some of you, not all of you, but you know the ones who you are, who always go, Larry, Second Amendment shall not be infringed. Force the Second Amendment. Literally, the question that he responded to was Hogg saying that no, the majority can basically vote away your rights. That's what Hogg just basically said. So if someone believes that the majority can vote away an amendment, which is what Hogg believes, then me yelling Second Amendment doesn't help, which is why you don't see me do it when I'm talking to the left. I bring up racism because the left loves talking about racism. But something else, once you hit the left with racism, all of a sudden like, now what do I do? Now Spike brings up racism, particularly black people, and Hogg is white. Well, you're on the left, you can't talk about it now. And Spike is Jewish. So you can't bring up the Nazi piece. I mean, like checkmate against Hogg, right? And Spike's wife is black. So Spike's got all the pieces to check Hogg because Hogg is obviously a Biden supporting Democrat. I'm not trying to attack him on that. I mean, that's terrible. But I'm saying it factually. He obviously is. He brings up systemic racism. He brings up poverty as a reason for gun violence. He brings up all the tropes you hear from Democrats, right? The far left actually doesn't bring up those tropes. The far left actually is more pro-gun control than Democrats are. But I'm sorry, it's more anti-gun control than Democrats are. Democrats are very much gun control, and so are Republicans. But in any case, in this case, he checks both of them. So well done, right? As he checks both of them and goes on to say, look, the majority, well, the majority said black people aren't people because they can carry guns.
Gun control is actually one of the best examples of what happens when you let a majority population decide that a minority population shouldn't be allowed to exercise some of their rights. It looks like a large group of racist white people telling black people you're not allowed to own firearms for your safety.
Yes.
Thank you. David,
you get my extra 40 seconds.
Wow. Thank you for your donation. First of all, I want to say one thing that this chart does not cover are exactly the 2/3 of gun deaths that he was talking about. If we actually saw the gun suicides on this chart, it would look a lot different. Because
So what does he do? He then says, well, you just said something that I can't deal with yet again. So you know what I'm talking about? Suicides. How about that? Now, it's a good pivot for him, right? Again, you can see that he's been in a couple of arguments in the past, but generally he can just shift. And everything he shifts, this is to Mike's point, goes right to emotion. Look at suicide. Gotta do something about suicide. Spike just told you were wrong and showed you were wrong. Can you even concede? And there's the other part. Will he even concede that he was wrong? No. Right? Now, a savvy debater who was trying to beat up Spike would have somehow conceded, pivoted, and then got him on something else, right? Some way that you would have done that. He just goes, yeah, but what about suicides?
that's the most common type of gun death in this country. That's 2/3 of gun deaths. To address the question more directly, obviously now, first of all, that is not how America works. We don't simply vote where all of a sudden we have a massive country. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Spike, I've never heard of this constitutional procedure where any American, we can just say, we're going to have a ballot measure in this country and we're all going to agree whether or not the Second Amendment exists. That is not how that works.
Yeah,
That's exactly how it works. Like, he's completely wrong. New York State is the perfect example of that, right? We don't personally vote on ballot initiatives, he's true, but our assembly literally has changed the Second Amendment in New York State to be the second suggestion. So he is literally wrong. That is what gun control actually is, right? Gun control is people voting to say that it's not a real thing, that the amendment is not a real thing. That's what it is. He's literally wrong. That's what his whole argument was.
At all. So I think
Thankfully.
there's a flaw in that question, for one, because it's completely irrelevant, frankly, in some
See
ways.
that?
That is
Dismissive.
not how that is handled.
Everything's
Not to
dismissive.
mention the fact that I wouldn't agree with that. There's a reason why we have a representative democracy in the first place. I don't disagree that we should be able to just say, because the majority of Americans don't want something, that it shouldn't be a right by any means. That is absolutely,
You're literally saying
should
that.
not be the case.
Of course.
But let's be clear too, in that it is possible both to have a First Amendment and also not have people yelling, screaming that there's a fire in a crowded theater. With all rights, there are limitations to them. There is no right that is completely unlimited, including this.
Again, he goes back to the first thing. Well, it's not completely unlimited, but that's not what Spike said. That wasn't the question. This is just distraction, distraction, distraction. And I think most of the people watching are actually getting that. Clearly, he was not ready for this. And this is why there is a part of me that makes me feel, I know some of you can be mad at me, but there's a part of me that actually makes me feel bad for him. It's obvious he was not ready for this. And he's popular. Like, people know who he is. So he has put himself in a situation, his fault for putting himself there, in a situation where he's supposed to be the guy. He's the activist. He's supposed to be the guy. He's the activist. Yeah, but that means you're going to have to go up in front of other activists like Spike, right? If you're repping this side, right? If you're repping it, you got to act accordingly. You got to come correct. Or what are you doing? And he did not do it. Which is why I'm saying this debate was not that great, because Hogg wasn't really that great, to be fair with you guys. I know some of you were like happy because Spike did well, but that's true. But I wasn't shocked that Spike, it's like, again, Spike's a heavyweight. He's fighting maybe a middleweight. He's supposed to win, right? So he won. So what? He was supposed to win. I wanted the middleweight to be a tougher opponent is what I wanted. So that's it. Mike has bad knees, says he's not intellectually equipped. And experience too, both. I would say both, Mike. It's both experience, and knowledge. It's both of those. Yes, absolutely. So let me see if I can grab a couple more of these. Mike also goes, Colin baiting him would have been hilarious. Well, I don't know. Spike was pretty funny too. I think, would have been pretty funny too. Yes. Missy says, in my previous far left days, I'd have been all about Hogg. He appeals to the emotions. I didn't really understand the Constitution or nuances of politics. Missy, I think a lot of people are still there now. And I think many people who are watching this, who now who have come home, I think we're there, right? Most people who are libertarians now were not always libertarians, right? They were either left or right or Republicans. Many of them were. Some were nothing. I was nothing before I came. But some were different things. I don't think your story is is uncommon at all. I think that's very common, and I'm glad you see it. That is good. So yes. All right. Let's see here. Some libertarian says Hogg didn't bring his own stats. Yes. People arguing against scientists all the time. They attack to produce statistics. Yes. Or they're just wrong but provide no data of their own. Yes. Absolutely true. 100% true. And he does that. He absolutely does that.
Second Amendment. What I'm advocating for here is simple limitations on this. That is not saying that nobody in this country can have guns or anything like that. What I'm advocating for is a higher standard of ownership in this country, while also addressing the fact that I do think Spike and I, although I don't think we're going to end up discussing this much because of our limited time, there are areas that we do agree, such as around the criminalization aspect, addressing poverty, addressing the systemic factors that play into driving gun violence as well, that I think are actually also very important for us to focus on.
No, every time he's wrong, he goes off the other thing. Well, also like, poverty and stuff, which I think is true. You could easily have a conversation about poverty. Let's have that. I did it. I did an entire thing on it at Queens College. I did entire libertarian answers for poverty at Queens College. It's a good thing to do. This is guns in America. Debate on gun control. So why are we talking about everything else? Yes. And then Joel, let me bring up what Joel brings up. Joel says, how many times did Hogg say take away our AR-15s and also say he does not want to take away guns? Every other one. Yes. His policies are Republicans bad. That's his policies. I'm not trying to be mean again, but that's what it is, Joel. His policies are Republicans are bad. That's what it is. The libertarian lady says, I was Republican. Yes, a lot of people come from someplace else. 100%. Absolutely. Yes. So that's good. Dave says, owning a gun's a God-given right, but I don't think minorities or immigrants should be allowed to own a gun. A white Republican on social media, maybe. Yes. Or maybe David Hogg. So yes, I think either one could say that.
Along with those 2/3 of gun deaths. And Spike, I'm going to take that 40 seconds you done. It was 40 seconds, right?
40. You got 42 seconds left.
So in those 40 seconds, I'll just talk about gun suicide in particular.
Okay.
Let's be clear. Somebody who wants to kill themselves and is very determined on doing so is likely going to do so if they are extremely determined. But the reality is, with a gun, you rarely get a second chance. So 90% of people who attempt suicide and survive their first attempt do not reattempt. But the odds of surviving an attempt of suicide with a firearm are less than 10% typically. But the most common type of suicide attempt is actually drug overdoses. Most people, about 90%, survive that. With a firearm.
So what he's saying is those people, and this is an accurate stat, right? He actually has some stats. He had one. So congrats, David Hogg. Well done. You got some stats. And his stats are accurate, right? If you try to commit suicide with a gun, the odds of you succeeding are far higher than anything else. But then he admits it's a small percentage of people committing suicide. It's a small percentage. And the ones who use guns are men. And the ones who are men are just in general, not just guns. In every way men commit suicide, they are more effective at it. Why? And this is a difference between male and females in general. The vast majority of men who are trying to commit suicide are actually trying to commit suicide. You might say, lie, what, women aren't? Many women are. But a huge chunk of women actually aren't trying to commit suicide. They're starving for attention. They're asking for help. They're begging for help. They feel helpless. I'm not joking. You think I'm making this up. It's factual. In fact, Spike brings up some data on that, right? So there is a difference between the two. There is.
In places like this, where Spike likes to point out, well, in Vermont, they have tons of guns.
Look how dismissive, where Spike likes to point out. Again, remember dismissiveness that is constant in him.
Guns and a much lower gun death rate. The reality is that the suicide rate is still much higher. And if people get that second chance, because there are stronger regulations,
where is the data that shows in these states the suicide rate's higher? There is none. Spike will bring up data because he had this ready, showing that there's no correlation at all with gun laws and suicide. There's no correlation. He just says it. There is no data. He just goes, that's what it is. There's no data to prove it.
The waiting day period, the better off you'll be.
I want David's additional 10 seconds he just got.
Go ahead.
I donate
them
now
back.
I get 40 seconds instead of 30 seconds. Yeah, so you actually can say fire in a crowded theater. I'm going to be the libertarian who's going to like focus on the least important thing. You can say fire in a crowded theater. The decision in which a justice said that you can't was used to justify an act in the Alien and Sedition Acts that was later ruled to be unconstitutional. If you yell fire in a crowded theater, you'll be trespassed, but you didn't actually break a law by saying that. The First Amendment is every bit as inviolable as the Second Amendment. Second of all, you are correct about suicides. And I was actually compelled by the fact that there hasn't been any study that has shown that gun control reduces suicide rates.
There we go.
I'm surprised by that because you are correct. Someone who uses a gun to commit suicide is more likely to succeed, unfortunately. But we've seen the data. It doesn't actually, gun control, we haven't, and I'd love to hear from David on this, but gun control.
You won't hear from him because he has no stats. He made that up. I added the piece about male, female stats because I know for those of you who are vets, you know that male vets, when they want to end themselves, they tend to do it, right? If someone doesn't call them or talk to them, they tend to do it. So in reality, and they tend to use firearms because they want to end it. So they do. So it tends to be male, female dichotomy. There's some data on that too. Spike doesn't bring that up. I brought that up.
Your time is up.
Yes. Just give me my time. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
But David, your final 30-second response on this question.
Yeah. Look, so why don't, let's ask ourselves for a second, guys, why don't we have that research? A lot of.
So now it's why don't you have the research? Let me move on to one piece if I could. There's a piece that I want to bring up if I could that I think is important here. I think, is it this one? I think it is, maybe this one. Let me see if I can grab this piece. I think this one may be a good one too. I tried to grab a couple pieces that I thought were interesting that really showed what Spike was doing and why he was doing it and how Hogg was
shifting. First of all, I just need to address the fact that
watch this, yeah.
This source, and this source, if I turned them in, I would have gotten an F in college because they're all from Wikipedia.
No, they're Wikipedia.
The source says it's Wikipedia.
Okay, it's from hold on. No, I want to. Okay, no.
Okay, so why did he do that? Because he was spending time. He realized that he was getting his butt kicked. I'm not joking. He was like, "Wow, I am getting my ass kicked here. I don't have stats. Let me find a way to dismiss." Because remember, the goal is to dismiss. The goal is to say he's not valid. I don't have an argument, so I must dismiss what he says. That gives my fans the ability to go, well, Spike was pulling stuff from Wikipedia, so that's why it's not real. I'm not joking. This is a tactic that many people use and he wants to use. So Hogg gets it and immediately says, well, it's all from Wikipedia, so it's not real. It actually isn't from Wikipedia. It's printed from Wikipedia, but the sources is where the people who put it in Wikipedia got it from. So the source isn't Wikipedia. And because some insanely stupid, insanely dumb college professor, as most of them are ignorant anyway. Yes, I'm attacking college professors. I've taught in college before. Most of them are knuckleheads. You all know that. I'm sure his are all knuckleheads. They're saying, oh, well, it's Wikipedia, therefore it's no good. When my daughter was in high school, this is just 2-3 years ago, her teacher was still saying, you can't use internet sources. What? You have to use magazines. I literally went to a principal and I said, my words, I said, who the hell has magazines in their house? What's this, 1960? Principal said, you're right, calm down. I literally was upset. I'm like, what? This is high school? You're talking magazines? So they're still doing this, right? But the point is, he wasn't doing it because Hogg believes the stats are wrong. And that's the key. If he believed the stats were wrong, he should say so, right? And maybe the stats are wrong. Maybe the source is bad and the stats are wrong. What he should have said is, Spike, these stats are wrong. I know these stats are wrong because X, Y, Z. You shouldn't have gone to Wikipedia. Wikipedia often has bad stats. That would have been a valid argument, right? That would have been a valid argument if he believed the stats were wrong. He doesn't. He just wants to make them invalid. He knows the stats are accurate. That's why he didn't say that. But he said, well, Wikipedia, blah, blah, blah. That's why.
I'll respond. Go ahead.
Question.
Beyond that, what was the question?
He doesn't even remember the question. Think about what he just did. All he wanted to do was dismiss because he can't even answer the question. Right? That's the issue. Right? Again, if you think that the data is incorrect, that's different. If you think, wait a minute, that data can't be correct because you know other data points, right? Because you know some other source. You could say that. I have no problem. You could say CNN is wrong or, whatever. News Nation is wrong. Of course. No, they're wrong. Why? Because I know the real facts. Here are the real facts. Your source is wrong. Of course. Right? I get Mike Voss tell me every 5 minutes by his source better than mine. Of course. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he didn't do that. He just said Wikipedia, of course. Dismissive, of course. Right? And that's the problem. He didn't say, what did you check this, you check that? Not at all. Yes. Michael's on to say, Hogg needs to discredit Spike, ignoring that Wikipedia compiled the data. Correct. Thank you, Mike. The data was compiled, right? And he did say that. Look, here's compiled. That's the issue, right? So Michael says, Larry, when are the Larry Sharpe stickers going to come to the Sharpe YouTube channel? I actually have right now, you can do it on the Larry Sharpe YouTube page. The Sharpe Way YouTube page doesn't have enough followers. The Larry Sharpe page does. And by the way, I'll add that right now. If you want to, guys, you can become a member if you want to. You get those cool stickers. You do. Click that join button at the Larry Sharpe YouTube page. Become a member, $49 per month. That's $5. Come on, guys. And just this week, I'm doing 6-7 shows. Come on now. Getting a lot of stuff from me and seeing cool people and cool stuff. So you can do it if you want to. You can also super chat me if you want to support the channel at Larry Sharpe YouTube. I don't have super chats available on Sharpe Way YouTube. Sorry about that, Michael. I only have it on Larry Sharpe YouTube right now. If you are watching on Twitter, please retweet this. And no matter what, click the button that is like. Do that no matter what. Or what you're saying is you hate both me and Michael. You hate both of us. That's what you're saying if you don't click that like button. And I know you don't feel that way. So click the like button. Do it. It does matter. It helps out tremendously. So yes. All right. Thomas says, I kept getting hung up on the comparison to Europe that Hogg references, but ignores things like Norway, July 2008 mass shooting with 77 victims. Here's a list of European mass shootings. Well, if you remember, Spike also brings up something else. He brings up all the mass shootings in Latin America and East Asia and Eastern Europe. There are lots of them in those places. He brings it up. Absolutely correct. Right? Absolutely correct. So he does bring those up. And he won't bring it up at all. He'll just ignore it. He'll just ignore it. So yes, that's absolutely true. He doesn't bring it up. And the other issue is most mass shootings in America are gang violence. The vast majority of gang violence. So if you end the war on drugs, you end most mass shootings. Over half mass shootings in America go away overnight. Just end the war on drugs. And that would happen. So yes. Scientific Libertarian says a good debate tactic would be to have the Wikipedia pages, when he mentions it, you slam down a stack of papers of the references. Nice. Oh, I like that. Yes. So use Wikipedia, put it out and go, wow, Wikipedia. Oh, I'm sorry. Here are the actual things you were saying. Yep. Yeah, that would be good. I do like that 100%. Mike says, my sources are impeccable mostly. Of course you would say that, Mike. Of course. But see, Mike, this is the difference. If that was you, if you were in Hogg's seat, and if you were attacking Wikipedia, you would say, no, these sources are wrong because I have other sources. You would attack Wikipedia because you thought they had the wrong sources, not because it's Wikipedia. And that's my exact point. I don't have a problem attacking Wikipedia, but it's got to be because you believe they've made an error or the person editing made a mistake or did something wrong, right? That's the piece that he did not do. He just went, Wikipedia, whatever. So yes, absolutely.
Here, yeah, reset his thing so he can,
In addition to the high rate of gun violence in the United States, we lead developed nations in mass shootings and lead the entire world in school shootings. Why are these tragedies more frequent in the United States? And what should be done to protect American children?
Well, I think it's pretty, you're probably going to not be surprised by my answer. It's the guns.
He says that like 4 times during his debate. What's the thing? It's the guns. But then says, well, I don't want to get rid of guns. He says, I'm not saying I want to take away your guns. What's the problem? It's the guns. blah, blah, blah. What? It's the guns. That's what he says constantly. He goes back and forth. He says like 4 times, it's the guns. So just get rid of guns and everything will be perfect. That's the answer. Get rid of the guns and be
The
perfect.
fact of the matter is we have the pretty much the highest rate of firearm ownership of almost any country, at least any large country in the world. Naturally, when that happens, you're going to have more instances of gun violence, of gun suicide, and mass shootings as well.
That part is accurate, right? Someone the other day, I was on a show, they said, well, how China has gun control and they don't have any gun violence. Yes, but I still have murder in China. People are still being stabbed and killed and beaten and thrown off of buildings. The question isn't gun. And this is the thing that really bothers me with the people who are so strong on gun control. They go, we got to attack gun violence. If you lose someone that you love, do you say, well, he got stabbed, so it's fine, I'm not mad? What do you mean? Your loved one's dead. No, but it wasn't gun violence. Oh, so if they stab him, it's fine? Yeah, he was stabbed at death. It's good. Nobody says that. If you lose someone close to you, why do you care if it was a gun or a knife or a bat or fell off a building, whatever? You lost someone close to you. He acts like it's the guns that make it worse. It isn't, right? The largest school killing, mass killing, was in France, Nice, France. You know what the weapon was? A van. I'm not making this up. It was a van. The guy wanted to kill students. It was in France. They have gun control in France. So he said, okay, I'm going to go rent the van. Rented a van. Waited for the kids to come out in the assembly outside. Ran them all over. Largest ever. So I guess we need to have common sense van control. I think that's the answer. Common sense van control. That's what France should have had. Just common sense, which, by the way, he brings up the idea of common sense constantly. Again, that, by the way, is a disrespect. That is a dismissal. See, I'm just saying common sense. You are clearly radical, right? Because I'm saying common sense, so you are clearly radical. That's what Hogg does many times also.
And how much time do I have for this one? It's
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay, great. And look, the other day, I don't know if anybody saw a different presidential candidate, RFK Jr., really amazing guy, obviously. He was.
See how dismissive that was. Why? He's a Biden guy. Does not like RFK at all. Not because he cares about anything that RFK says. Why? Because Biden.
Talking about how the reason why gun violence is so prevalent in the United States is because of antidepressants and violent video games. I didn't know that America was the only country where people took antidepressants and played violent video games. The difference is in these other countries, it's a hell of a lot harder to get a damn gun, frankly.
So that's the issue. See?
That's why these shootings don't have nearly as much gun violence. Of course, there is a cultural component that we have to address as well.
Oh, so the cultural component and the fact that when it comes to antidepressants and those pharmaceuticals, no country's taking them more than we are. No country is. We have an unhappy people problem.
But the reality is, it is a lot harder, even if you're somebody.
He says that constantly. The reality is, again, everything he says is dismissive. Then he tries that, like, well, I respect you. He goes out of his way to say, during this nothing, I respect you. You have a right to do this. He says it constantly. That's being patronizing. He does not believe that. He does not respect you. Nothing he's saying makes this happen to where he's like, he actually cares or respects us. He is being dismissive. It's a common tactic he used again and again and again. Yes. And Dave brings it up. The United States puts more people on antidepressants per capita than in Europe. Than any country on the planet. Dave, that's correct. Than any country on the planet. Yes. That's right. That's the issue. 100%. You are correct, Dave. Thank you for that.
There's all these people that say all the time, David, gun laws just don't work because criminals don't obey gun laws. But there's so much nuance that talking point leaves out. The shooter at my high school was a 19-year-old, and he was a criminal.
So he goes, again, this is not the question. He just says, we're going to go to this other piece, cultural piece, and then we're going to talk about the shooter that was 19 that killed my thing, so you can't be mad at me. Again, can't be mad at me.
But he was not a criminal mastermind. He was a 19-year-old that was able to legally go out and obtain an AR-15 with a high-capacity magazine and murder my classmates. He did not have connections to the cartel or the black market, right? Obviously, in some instances, people are still going to be able to get guns, but an instance like that, where somebody repeatedly threatened to shoot up a high school, not only should they have not been able to get an AR-15, and I don't believe that actually infringes on anybody's rights. I think it actually protects our rights to safety in the first.
See that? He says first, I don't want to take guns. Then goes, yeah, we just take the AR-15s. That doesn't affect anybody's rights because Second Amendment does not matter to him, right? Our right, the right to safety. And you guys don't remember. See, this is your problem, all you guys who think you're constitutional lawyers and stuff. There was actually more than 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights. There's amendment number 2.5, which says everybody has a right to safety, so take all the guns. That's 2.5 amendment. That's 2.5A. That's what that one is. The right to safety for everybody. He made that up. You have a right to safety. That's your right. And by the way, that's the number one right, is the right to safety. You made that up. Yes, everybody said it. Why? Because people will buy it. People, my Governor Kathy Hogg says it all the time. My number one job is to keep all New Yorkers safe. When was that part of your job description? I don't remember that. You made that up. That's not in our Constitution. That's not in your job description. That's not in your oath of office. Nothing. You just made that up. He made it up too. So, Woman in the Woods, thank you for jumping aboard. Says, I didn't like that they didn't allow all the same participants in the pre-debate survey as the post-debate survey. The results cannot be accurate. Yeah, that was insanely stupid. This debate was not run well. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, they did the, let's see if there's a change in the debates, right? Who believes X, who believes Y before the debate, then resurvey who believes X, who believes Y to see if there's a change. Well, they didn't keep the same people in each one of them. That was insanely stupid. And Spike was being nice, didn't say anything. I would have stepped up and said, no, stop. Don't be stupid. They were trying to be cute or something. I don't know what they were doing. But actually what I think it was is the people in the room at the college were far more pro-gun control than the people who were watching at the watch parties that Hogg said. So Hogg told them, well, they're all watch parties. That's why the initial was so pro 2A and anti-gun control. But at the end, so many, all of a sudden, everybody was pro-gun control. Well, because at the college they were. That was the reason why, Woman in the Woods. That was the reason why they said that. So Joe says, why do they have to mention Matthew? Because she is my Lord and Master, Joe. Of course. She is. 100%. Yes. And James says, I felt like the moderator allowed Hogg to run off, and he took advantage of that. Tasha's husband followed the rules. Correct. Accurate. And he does it on purpose. Remember, Hogg played the victim immediately. He showed up saying, don't beat me up. I'm the victim, blah, blah, blah. So now the moderator feels bad, right? Again, I would not have cared. But the moderator felt bad. The moderator was not a good timekeeper. Even at the end, the question at the end, basically the last question was just the Hogg show. He just kept talking about stuff. So yes, I think that's absolutely correct. Look, the moderator, maybe he's new or young. I guess I'm a little bit of a nudge on this because I moderate so many debates. So I want mine to run well. I want people to like my debates and see value. I want that to come out. He did not do that. I think you are correct. That is inaccurate.
First place.
Yes.
Right. I think that's just common sense. And that's what I'm advocating for. It's not
common sense again. It's just common sense, you people. All you radicals. You will see this disdain and this dismissiveness throughout the entire time.
Not a world where everybody, has their firearms taken away or anything like that. That is not what I want. Also, that would be legit.
He just said, watch what he says. I don't want him taking the firearms away when he said he should do it because of the safety. Remember, he said we can take the guns away. He said that because of our right to safety. Then he says it's just common sense because you people are all clearly radicals, right? I'm the common sense guy. And then the last thing he says just now, he says, and look, I'm not saying take guns away, even though I just said take guns away, but then he validates why he's saying it. Not because it's wrong, but because
logistically impossible and constitutionally impossible.
Because it is logistically impossible and constitutionally impossible. Would he change that if he could? Of course he would. He's not saying it's wrong. He's saying I can't. So, if I could, I sure would. So, yes. So he says, and what is an AR-15? A flapping firearm. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Missy says, I feel like Hogg mainly tries to appeal to people's emotions because it often works. You're right. You're right. It often works. And I think it did work because the scientific libertarian's point, I think it says a lot that the moderator never stepped in. And with no regulations, Spike Cohen still won. Yes, which is what I'm saying. I know some people liked the debate. I liked it too. I liked seeing Spike do well. I love Spike. He's my friend. I'm so happy he did well. I was beaming watching him just do so well. It's awesome. Love that. But again, Spike's a heavyweight, right? Spike's the guy who goes in front of city councils and scolds them all like children, right? This is high school baseball for him, and he's playing in the major leagues. I would have liked to see Hogg be a better opponent for him. I would have made a better debate. So yes. Let me go a little bit further here.
But that's my opinion.
Spike, your response on
Yes.
school safety.
So first of all, I apologize for interrupting. I apologize for that. That was uncalled for. I'm glad you got your 30 seconds back. Second of all, the Wikipedia listings are of the data that was reported to UNSCAR, both of the firearms rates per person, the firearms per person rate, and the homicide rate,
Yep.
which I actually believe is the data reported by the individual country's governments. So that's where that's listed, but it's not, the source isn't, trust me, bro, I saw it on Wikipedia. If it was, you would be 100% correct to call me out on that. So when it comes to the US, we had basically no mass shootings or no school shootings in this country up until a relatively recent period of time. In the
Now, specifically, the amount of times I've gone upstate in New York and had people who are a bit older, my age or older, or in my age range or older, tell me how we used to bring guns to high school. Like that was a thing. Like we all had like rifle racks and all those things. There was no school shootings. Spike brings this up perfectly. Watch how Spike does.
But from 1949 into the 1960s, there were basically no mass shootings until the late 1960s. This was at a time when students routinely brought guns to school, and many schools had shooting ranges where they taught shooting and proper gun use. So again, the problem, at least in America, was not the guns.
Yes. What happened in the late 60s? Trying to remember what began to happen. What was that? Oh, right. War on poverty, war on drugs. That's right. That began to happen. What else started happening?
The Crime Control Act was passed. And as part of the Crime Control Act, what they did was they said that it was at the federal level, it was illegal to carry firearms on any school property. They also introduced SROs, student resource officers. Yeah, I know you're not a fan either. And as David can tell you as well, an SRO has never stopped a school shooting, not a single one. What they have done is abuse children. They have been caught including sexually abusing children. Not all of them, but this has happened. If it even happened once, it happened more than one time that they ever stopped a shooting. They are.
Yes. So literally adding SROs made us less safe. Let me repeat that. Adding resource officers in schools, school resource officers, meaning the security guards in schools, literally made us less safe.
Are not useful. So basically what the federal government did is said any peaceful law-abiding person in this school is not allowed to own firearms, and we're going to over-police it as well. In other words, they introduced the conditions that it imposed on the inner city into government-run schools, and lo and behold, we suddenly started having school shootings. That's what caused that.
That is your time.
Oh, that is my time. Okay, I'll address the assault weapons thing next.
I mean, like, the fact of the matter is gun technology is vast.
The fact of the matter is, he says that again, right? Again, dismissive, dismissive, dismissive.
Improved since that era. Semi-automatic rifles make up, like the AR-15, they make up 25% of all gun sales in this country at this point. Those guns are not made necessarily to defend yourself. They were originally developed from a variant of the M16 that was originally developed as part of a competition. I could go into the whole history of it, but it was made effectively for the US military. And those weapons are made for the jungles of Vietnam. They are not made necessarily to defend yourself. And frankly, if you defend yourself with a rifle from 1,000 feet away, it's...
All right, a couple things. For those of you who know, the AR-15 and M16 are very similar weapons. Not the same, but they're very similar. That's true. But it was made in the 60s. He's saying, you know, from those times of the 60s, stuff has changed. That's when the M16 was made, was the 60s. The 60s. It was not made. The M16 was not made for the jungles of Vietnam. The effective rate to engage an enemy with an M16 is 300 to 400 meters. About 1,000 feet, correct, about that. You can't see that far in the jungle of Vietnam. You can't see that far in the jungle of Vietnam. It was made to engage, believe it or not, it was made to engage the Soviets. It was made during the Cold War, right? Mike Vosmer, like me, we both used the M16, right? In the 80s, it was the Cold War. I got an M16A2 service rifle. That's what I was issued when I was in the Marine Corps. So, yes, it came out in the 60s. Dave says late 50s. Yes, it was put together in 50s, but it didn't actually come into the military till the 60s. The military got it. They were still using M14s. In the 50s, they were still using M14s and M1s. M1s, M14s, they were using that in the 50s. You're right. It was made in the 50s, but it didn't get into the military until the 60s. So we happen to be in Vietnam when it was made. But to your point, Dave, they were making the M16 in the 50s. We were fighting in Korea, if anything, right after World War II. The M16 was made to fight Soviets. That's what it was about. So, yes.
Unless you're in a place that's really, I mean, it is hard to imagine really any compelling argument to why that's the case, especially considering the fact for most of US history, you actually had a duty to retreat. You had, even on your own property, you had to prove that your life was so in danger that you had no other choice but to kill that person. But what we've seen with the passage of laws like Stand Your Ground is not more gun responsibility, it's more irresponsible salesmanship and gun ownership where people shoot first and ask questions later.
He made that up again. This system that says stand your ground laws are bad because I guess racism, I guess. Spike's going to fix this one too. He just made this up. It's absolutely not true. There's no data that shows he's right. He made this up.
Yeah, so I believe that standard of having to retreat started in the 1940s with the Model Penal Code, which was explicitly added in order to make it harder for marginalized people to claim that they were defending themselves. Prior to that, we had decisions like Bad Elk versus Oklahoma.
He's right now. You see Hogg shaking his head no with no data. Why is he shaking his head no? He's shaking his head no because he doesn't like it. He's looking down at see what is his body language? He's looking at the paper, trying to find a way for it to be bad or wrong. He has no data, but he wants that paper to be wrong. So how can I dismiss this? Spike has the facts, the figures, the numbers to show that I'm right. How do I dismiss this? That's what he's looking down on right now. He's thinking, how can I dismiss this? I don't have the data. Spike is right again. God damn it. How do I fix this? Spike's correct. These gun laws were put into place to stop black people from defending themselves against cops. I'm not making that up. To stop Mexican immigrants, to stop defending themselves from cops. That kind of thing.
Oklahoma, where a Native American killed 2 police officers who were attempting to arrest him, and the federal government ruled that he was within his rights because they weren't in the right jurisdiction. That's what it used to be.
Yes, we used to defend ourselves even against cops. Now we can't defend ourselves at all. And that's what stand your ground laws come from.
Anyway, back to the, I'll go to the assault rifles thing. David's right. There are 25 million and counting assault style rifles in this country. There are about, I believe, 3 million, give or take, being added to that every year. And you are more likely to be beaten to death than you are to be killed by someone wielding an assault rifle. You're 3 times more likely to be stabbed, and you're something like 17, maybe it's 14, but it's in the teens, more times more likely to be killed with a pistol. So that's really, it is, and that's with any rifle, including hunting rifles, not just assault rifles. It is why in 2004,
this is literally what Mike, you brought it up perfectly. Exactly what he's talking about. Semi-automatic rifles are 25% of sales, less than 2% of mass shootings, even lower in gang shootings. Yes, absolutely 100% true. Yes. Missy says, without data sources, Hogg was incompetent. True. He didn't take this seriously. He thought he'd find another echo chamber. Yes. See, Missy, I'm glad you brought that up. He thought, I'm going to a college. Well, these are my people. I'll show up. I'll say the right talking points. I'll just say that. And when I say the right talking points, they'll all clap and I'll win. Right? I think you're right. That's what he thought. And then he was like, wait a minute, that's not happening. I got to dismiss this guy
Department
somehow.
of Justice. No, go ahead. No,
Let him have his time. Go ahead.
It's just that one sentence. In 2004, the Department of Justice determined in a study that the assault weapons ban had either no effect on the murder rate in the U.S. or so little effect that it could not be measured.
Look at that.
Okay. As a follow-up question on the topic of schools, should schools be gun-free zones? And should schools arm teachers or increase armed security?
Folks, how much 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Like, you're going to notice one common theme with most of the things that, again, I have a lot of respect for Spike as a person. I just don't agree with him on the issues that we're arguing.
See, he has to keep saying that. Why doesn't Spike say that to him? Why isn't Spike saying, I respect David on his issue? Why is Spike not saying that? He doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. This is a way to fill time, plus put himself above the fray. He is trying to position himself, to your point, Missy, emotionally superior or better, right? I'm putting myself above the fray by the way he says that. He doesn't really mean it.
Arguing about, obviously. The reality is a lot of what he's bringing up is going to have one common theme.
The reality of what he's bringing up. Now, remember what I told you. He was looking down at the paper and trying to find a way to dismiss what Spike was saying. I got to find a way to dismiss it. How do I find a way to dismiss it? So he goes, the reality is, which of course dismisses. He starts with, I respect him. See, so I'm not doing this. Then he says, the reality is dismissive.
It's selling more guns.
Selling more guns.
That is what we've done. We've created a society and a system of incentives for these gun manufacturers where they are protected from liability because they're one of the there are three industries in the United States that cannot be.
So what did he just do? He dismissed the entire thing. This was his tactic during the entire piece. What did he just say? He went, I respect Spike. He does not, but he says that. So see, I'm virtuous. Good virtue signal. Well done, Hogg. Virtue signal first. Then the reality is, because I'm smart and he's not, is everything he's saying, his words, every common theme he's saying is selling guns. So you know what it is? It's because Spike's a capitalist. You think I'm joking? I'm not. I'm not. He later goes on to systemic racism. I'm not joking. He brings that up also. So he talks that the whole idea is, well, he's a capitalist, so how can you listen to anything he's saying? He's all about selling guns. That's what he's saying. He supports these three. And then he brings up all the other bad industries and links Spike to all of those. Right? So this is his way. Remember, he was looking at that paper, thinking about how to do it, and that's what his answer was.
Be held civilly liable. They are the MLB, nuclear energy companies, and the firearms industry. And the only exception to that is if you manufacture a firearm and it is improperly used and it goes off and blows up in somebody's face. But I do think schools should be gun-free zones because I think they should be schools and not prisons. I think that they should be schools and not police states for our children. I think that there's actually a strong libertarian argument to be made that have.
Now he's brought that up a couple times too. There's a strong libertarian argument to be made. He's not a libertarian in any way, shape, or form. Admittedly, like he would never claim to be one. He's not. So why would he say that? Well, that's a strong libertarian argument. Why? Again, it is to say, see, I'm right, and Spike is a radical. I'm right, and Spike is a hypocrite. I'm right, and this is bad. He's not attacking what Spike's saying. He is trying to dismiss Spike.
Having guns in our schools endangers the future of our country because we're effectively grooming our children to believe that they're safe nowhere in many ways, and it makes them more compelled to believe that they need, that they just can't be safe in the first place. And I think let's just for a second.
He has no idea what he's talking about now. He is completely broken. All he's thought about is how can I dismiss Spike effectively? Because everything he's saying is correct. Look at his face now. Damn it. Now what can I say? He doesn't want more time. He wants less time.
To answer the arming teacher's question, how many of you have ever had an argument with your teacher or professor? How would you feel if that person had a Glock 19?
So now his response is, and listen to what he's actually saying. Wouldn't you be afraid your teacher would shoot you? With that logic, cops shouldn't have guns. Nobody should have guns because they might shoot you. Right? Nobody should have guns. Sheriffs shouldn't have guns. They might shoot you. Nobody should have a gun at that point. But does anyone honestly believe that if I have an argument with my teacher will shoot me? Of course not. It's another straw man, another thing he puts up. And he sat into this. Remember, this is him thinking. He's like, damn, I got nothing. I know. Teachers with guns. That will be scary. And I'm in a college. To your point earlier, Missy, he's in the college. This is his people. he thinks he can do this.
Right? Well, good for you, sir. I don't think most of the students in this room, and I'm sure there are some that don't agree. But the reality is, human beings are incredibly emotional and stupid creatures. And adding guns into these.
So now we're all stupid. Now it comes out. As he gets desperate, he literally just calls us all stupid. Because in reality, that's what he thinks. In reality, what he thinks is, you're all stupid. I'm not. Listen to what I'm saying. Let government do its job. You guys don't get it. People are stupid. Government is right. I'm not joking when I say that. He will later on in the end say exactly that. He will actually say it only matters if the government says so. He will actually say that in his closing statements. That's exactly what he's talking about. Yes, Joel says emotional and stupid, confession by projection. Well done, Joel. Well done. Absolutely. Yes, well done. Thomas says, if we had true school choice, there'd be less opportunities for mass shootings in schools. Micro schools and home schools don't offer the target density of large government schools. 100% true, Thomas. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. So, yeah. So Mike says, he's trying to use accusation equals guilt. Like students would know if teachers have guns with them now. They might. It's a good point, Mike. They could have one of them now. Absolutely. Ooh, Jamie, good point. How safe was he in his gun-free zone school? Yeah. Well done. Yes. Well done. Absolutely. So, yes. Listen to let him keep going.
Situations is going to make it deadly. I don't care how much training somebody has, even law enforcement officers, you cannot train out instincts from them. And you can't train out the fact that, did anybody see recently at a Chipotle, somebody got their order wrong and a guy pulled out a gun on the manager? When you're adding more guns into our society, that is far more, statistically speaking, what is going to happen than people.
But there were massive gun laws in that city. There were massive gun laws in that city. And that still happened. Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe gun laws don't work. What?
People just reasonably having them and being calm, because people have road rage. People are emotional. And even if they're well-trained, which I know is not necessarily what Spike is advocating for, unless it's by a non-government agency. I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying. You're going to have more instances of gun violence. It's just what's going to happen.
Spike, 2-minute response.
Oh, it's 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Can you start over? Because my reaction to that was like 5 seconds.
Sorry.
And I thought,
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I only had 30 seconds. So the joy of that, sorry. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not.
2 minutes on should schools be gun-free zones or should we increase armed security in schools?
Yeah, no. Actually, I'm not sure either. I don't think that the SRO model it's a terrible, terrible model.
Mhm.
Over-policing is a bad idea. We have
Yes.
too many cops. And I think we probably both agree on that. We have too many cops and we have too many laws. And if there is going to be any kind of security in schools, or especially in schools, they shouldn't be there as law enforcement officers, because cops are hammers and everyone's a nail. And we shouldn't be treating students as nails. So I think we agree on that. When it comes to guns, in the United States, American schools were as safe from school shootings as our European peers prior to 1990 with the introduction of the Crime Control Act, where we, again, imposed the conditions of the inner city, saying if you are someone who cares about what our signs say you can and can't do, you can't have a firearm. Oh, but if you're a potential school shooter or a criminal, you need to know that you'll be the only one in here without a firearm, except for the SROs. They're going to run away. And then if you start shooting, we're going to call the police, and they will stand outside and wait for the gunfire to stop. And then you get to decide whether you want to die in a hail of bullets or turn yourself in. If you are someone who has decided to rack up a body count of people, then basically the sign might as well say, this is your oyster, come and get it. And that is what a so-called no-gun zone looks like. That's why 94% of all mass shootings have happened in so-called no-gun zones. We are saying if you are peaceful, you can't have a gun. If you aren't peaceful, you also can't have a gun, but you don't care what the laws are. I want to address liability. I got enough time for this. Yes, the PLCCA or PLCAA says that if a firearms manufacturer makes something faulty, then they should be liable for that.
Makes sense.
But not if someone uses their gun to do something illegal. That's true of everything. We didn't sue Ford because Darrell Brooks used a Ford Escape to ram down and kill dozens of people during the Waukesha Christmas parade a few years back, because it wasn't Ford's fault. And
Mhm.
it's not, it's not Colt's fault if someone uses their AR-15.
Thank you.
There we go.
David, a 30-second response.
I mean, the
Really
fact of the
respond.
matter is, I don't know about you all, but last I heard, schools in Europe are also gun-free zones. When was the last time that we heard about a school shooting there? Maybe it's because they don't have guns nearly as much as we do.
It's the
Just saying.
guns. Just saying, it's the guns. It's so obvious. What's wrong with
The
you?
other thing is, I think that there's an important distinction. I think there's actually a strong libertarian argument to be made about
Says it again.
why these companies should be held civilly liable, which is the fact that it's an important way of the market regulating itself. If you were saying that you were only selling to the most responsible,
See, he now says it's libertarian because he's hoping to break Spike on this. It doesn't work at all, right? Of course, it doesn't work at all. But the libertarian argument, because the market, because you know what David Hogg cares about? The market. See, the market. That's the issue. Yes, it isn't. It isn't at all. He doesn't care at all. So Jamie, of course, says, spot on again, Mike, of course, right? Exactly. David, Spike's answer on gun-free zones in school was great. Yes, absolutely. Miles says, like I said, gun-free zones, we're fish in a barrel. 100%. Absolutely. No, Mike says, he counts on Americans' lack of international knowledge. Yes, that is correct. Yes. In the UK, they have there's a picture a couple years back of a sign that said no knives or something in London. And there was a guy who murdered someone with a knife under the sign. Like literally, there was a picture like that. And they actually considered, it's a true story, they considered regulating knives in London. They didn't, obviously, but somebody said, we need knife regulation, knife control. I'm not joking. Like a PM or whatever is their local in their city in London actually came up with this idea. Let's regulate the knives because that'll work. Literally, that's what happened. Obviously, it did not work, but one of their local people actually thought that's a better idea. That is how broken they are. It is embarrassing. Let me grab, I have a couple more pieces I want to pick up here. Did I get this one here? Hold on. I think it's this one I want to grab if I could. This is kind of another piece I want to grab here that he mentioned. See if I can grab this one too. It's another good piece.
that's threatening to shoot up a high school, I don't think that they should necessarily, be given a court date immediately and then have their firearm removed later on. That's an immediate and present threat to the community, and that person should have their firearms removed and be given due process after that. That's what I was getting.
He just said that. Earlier, he said we don't want to take guns. Now he says, literally, he says, take the guns, give them due process later. That's what he says. Take the guns, due process later. But didn't he earlier say, no, we can't do that. I'm not taking the guns. He has gone back and forth. Super Weapons, thank you, says the mayor of London wanted to ban the knives. Yes. And Mike says they're still trying to regulate knives in the UK. Yes, I remember is it still, I know they haven't done it yet, but I know that some of the local people were talking about it. So, okay, there we go. They're still trying to do it. I love that. They're still trying to do it. It is insane. They are.
Getting at earlier. I don't think that's an affront to anybody's civil liberties. I think that helps protect all of us in the first place. I know there are some people that disagree with that, but that's my stance. So I think we need to address how somebody gets a gun and why they want to pick up a gun in the first place. Part of the challenge with this work is that Spike can talk all he wants about
this work. Whenever you hear do the work or the work, that is people grifting. That's grifting language. That's grifting language right there. Part of this work, we got to do the work. What's that mean? That means I have to change your mind. I have to brainwash you. That's what he means, right? He literally said, don't worry about it. Just take it. And then he goes, Spike can say all the stuff he wants, right? Again, dismissive, because what he's doing, by the way, if you understand, he's doing the work is what he's doing. He's getting you to do the work. Spike's just talking about all the stuff. He's not really legitimate. And that's how he actually thinks. Let me just repeat that again so it's clear.
Presented you all is talking about that. Personally, I believe that we need to address how somebody gets a firearm in the first place. And that I think if there is somebody that's threatening to shoot up a high school, I don't think that they should necessarily, be given a court date immediately and then have their firearm removed later on. That's an immediate and present threat to the community. And that person should have their firearms removed and be given due process after that. That's what I was getting at earlier. I don't think that's an affront to anybody's civil liberties. I think that helps protect all of us in the first place.
All of us.
I know there are some people that disagree with that, but that's my stance. So I think we need to address how somebody gets a gun and why they want to pick up a gun in the first place. Part of the challenge with this work is that Spike can talk all he wants about, individual instances of self-defense gun use. Because when that happens, it's on Fox News, it's on Breitbart, it's on every single damn news channel of the right. But the reality is it's impossible to talk about the shooting that didn't happen, like the one that could have happened to my mother.
Okay, if it's impossible, one, why are you doing it now? So it's not really impossible, is it? So you're talking about it now. And you go across the country talking in colleges, obviously poorly, but I guess they love you because you say their talking points. But if it's so important, then why isn't it on MSNBC and CNN, which would be the media of the left, right?
If that man continued to be armed, I may have had to bury her. And I don't think that that man necessarily doesn't.
Now, this is also very good. He goes right to, I might lose my mom. I would have buried my mom. Come after that. Now, luckily, again, I'm going to tell you, we are very lucky that we had Spike there. Spike did not take the bait and didn't attack his mom or yell at all. What he did was still be himself. There are libertarians who would have been like, I don't care about your mom, and would have taken his bait. His bait is, look, I'm being good. Go ahead and beat me up and make me a victim. Spike did not do that. Well done, Spike.
I don't think that the law that we passed after Parkland is a violation of anybody's civil rights. I think it actually helps to protect our civil rights because mind you, we're in the state right now that's the live free or die state, right? Am I wrong about that? Yeah. The ultimate violation on all of our liberties is death. And the current state of affairs that we have in America right now is one where we are far more likely than almost any other developed country to die from gun violence or gun suicide even than those other countries. And I think that doing the same...
Again, he brings the gun piece up. What about other things?
Common thing that we have been...
Suicide rates in Scandinavia are pretty bad.
Isn't going to solve that. And I agree in some respects with what you're saying of how we have to address why people pick up a gun. But
suicide rate in Korea is embarrassing. Suicide rate in Japan, horrible.
But I think we can't just do that. We need to address both.
Spike, still no desire for a closing remark?
I think the only thing I will say, since I'm taking back part of my 2 minutes, I want to be clear that when Nicholas Cruz was threatening to shoot up the school prior to the actual shooting or any instance like that, he should have been charged for that. That's actually a crime. That was what I meant when I said it's a failure of the justice system. When that threat was made against your mother or anything like that, those are crimes being committed. And yes, they can step in because of a crime being committed and say, you have committed the crime of threatening someone. And so not only are we taking your guns, we're taking your freedom by holding you and now putting you through due process, right? What a red flag law does is it says we're going to take your guns based on someone asserting that you've done something with little to no evidence. Correct. We're not going to let you know what happened until after the fact. You have no ability to prove your innocence. In fact, no one's trying to prove your innocence. We're not even looking at innocence. We just want to know if there was a claim so we can take your guns from you. That's why I'm against red flag laws. But no, absolutely. The person who made that threat, that was disgusting, and they should be not just lose their guns, but be punished for it. So I agree 100% on that. I want to make that clear. And other than that, no, I have nothing left to say, and let's get to Q&A.
There we go.
Excellent. Well, now we will turn to audience Q&A. You can form two lines. We will alternate.
Now the Q&A piece is very interesting.
People with mics there at the front. So we can start on this side.
So Dave asked, Larry, does Japan do family suicide instead of murder suicide? The thing about many Eastern countries, not all obviously, but many Eastern countries, they're based upon a shame culture versus a guilt culture, right? Most Western countries are built on a guilt culture. What's the difference? Guilt culture means you can repent, right? So if I did something wrong, I can then repent, right? And shift back. I can do that, right? If it's guilt culture. If it's a shame culture, there is nothing. It is a mark on you and your family forever. And the way of getting rid of that mark is often suicide, right? Which is why there are honor killings and also suicides. That does happen a lot more. Those types of suicides happen much more in the East than they do in the West. In the West, most of the time suicides because an individual believes, there is no need to live anymore, that they cannot repent, right? They are past the level of repent. In the East, it's also more because of shame and whatever, it doesn't matter. So my family's affected. That'll be the difference in those two. So yes. Let's see here if I'll grab that one real fast. All right. I like the man who explained the live free. He's coming, Gene. All right. You know what? Let me grab his first question and see. But I'm going to zip through a couple of these.
What? This side? You want to start over here? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you both so much for being here. I have a question for you, Spike. So David mentioned this early on in the debate about the importance of understanding basic principles of statistics. Looking at most of the studies you pointed to, you seem to argue that because certain locations with strict gun control legislation have high levels of gun violence and vice versa, like with DC.
He did not argue that, right? To be clear, he did not. He did not say that it's high or low. He said there's no correlation between the two, is what he said. But she's trying to dismiss his facts, right? She is on Hogg's side. She wants to dismiss his facts.
Versus Vermont, there is no correlation between gun control and gun deaths. However, we know that two variables can have causation without correlation because there are variables affecting the data set. How can you empirically prove there is not a causal relationship here?
He didn't.
I'm saying that there's no data that is implying that there is. I want to be clear, I'm not saying that guns inherently make us more safe, because we have more guns than anywhere else on earth. And if we did, there'd be no one close to as safe as we are, because we have way more guns than anyone else. So no, I'm not making that claim. What I'm saying is we're not seeing any data that correlates, much less causates. So I hope that answered your question. Outside of what
she is not happy, right? She wanted him to be able to be like, yeah, see? He said, no, I never said that. What I said is gun control. There's no data that says gun control makes us safer or not safer. He's just saying there's no correlation.
Again, that was citing data from the UN and those countries.
He immediately goes back to Wikipedia. See, so Hogg now jumps on board trying the same thing. The goal is always to dismiss him, to discredit him. That is the goal, dismissing and discrediting.
Countries that were saying what they were. Next time I'm going to bring a chart, and it's going to cite every single country's government that's listed on there.
Spike, like in my debate classes, like if I brought this up in a debate, I would be thrown out and fail immediately.
Okay, first off, if your teacher was dumb enough to do that, and you have a crappy, stupid teacher, which I'm sure he does, and no one cares about your college debate. College debate means nothing. You were not a good debater because you were on your debate team. It means nothing. You can just say garbage that no one cares about. Debating is what you just saw Spike do, understanding how to move back and forth. That's critical.
It's like,
Let's move on to
the only reason I bring this up, just as one point, is because like you can edit Wikipedia. So just in the future, I'd appreciate those like.
You'd appreciate.
I'm going to get your email address and I'm going to send you that, but it's going to
We'll continue this conversation.
Let's move on. Next question, please.
Hi, this question is for David. First off, great debate. It's a lot better when one side isn't blasting Disney music while the other side is trying to speak. You might just raise the mic a little, leaning down. So the organization that you founded, March for Our Lives, one of the key policies that you guys advocate for is an assault weapon ban, which until tonight, I feel like that you've never really defined. And tonight you did define it as a semi-automatic rifle. Many assault weapons banned nationwide encompass a whole lot more than that. You have pistols, you have long guns, you have various types of.
And this next thing you do, if you ever see me whenever I allow people to do questions, I always say up front, put your question in the form of a question. No, you start doing that, I will cut you right off. What's your question? I will just cut you right off. People like this. Let me talk for an hour, blah, blah, blah. I want a virtue signal. I don't care about
firearms, including 22 caliber firearms. You did mention that you are opposed to the police state. You think it's an ever-growing part of the government, and you're opposed to that. However, gun control always has to be enforced at the barrel of a gun.
Yep.
And part of the party platform of March for Our Lives is advocating for a mandatory gun buyback of so-called assault weapons, which would be gun confiscation. So my question to you is, if you are ever able to enact that policy and enforce it, will you be the first person in the stack to come take it from me? Or are you going to have the same armed state agents that you hate so much do the dirty work for you?
It's a great question. However, it's done in a way that's obviously attacking, right? For those who don't get what he's saying, you're saying you don't want these, because you're here now and Spike's beating you up. You won't admit that you actually are all about the government taking guns. If the government does take the guns, it's going to be cops that do it in some way, shape, or form. And for those who know what the stack is, actually, I've had people who do this actually it's actually done in prisons, it's done in houses. Whenever you rush inside of a building, the stack is the group of people that go in order. That's called the stack. And the first person in the stack will either have a riot shield or some form of shield to go in, or they'll have the battering ram, one or the other, right? They'll have the ram or they'll have the shield. That's called the stack. He said, you can be the first one in the stack, or you can have the government agent do it for you. That's a very good question. And Hogg should have to answer that question. He will not.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's been, in the history of March for Our Lives, obviously we started out as a group of students after a shooting, and we believe that it is important to address these high-powered rifles that have enabled the state to be militarized as an excuse in the first place. Because part of the reason why the state became so militarized as it is today is because of multiple, there was one instance, I forget the exact name of it, but there was an instance in the 90s. It was a pretty infamous armed robbery in Los Angeles where the assailants were.
So now what he's saying is, first of all, he starts with, well, we started as students. This is another way of saying, don't beat us up. We were young. I was young. We didn't know any better. Starts with that. So please don't beat me up. I'm a victim. He falls back to victim often. That's what he does. He falls back to, I'm a victim. You can't get me. I'm a victim. So he fell back to victim immediately. Boom. I'm a victim off the bat. And then he goes to, well, it's part of the reason is because we have something. That's why the cops became. He says that the cops became militarized because the people became militarized. Not even close to true. Not the truth at all. Not a thing. The cops became militarized initially because of the war on drugs. Secondly, because of the military-industrial complex. Those two things militarized the cops. They happened perfectly in order. The war on drugs with a massive military-industrial complex. We got to buy new stuff, give the old stuff to the cops. That's what actually happened. What he's saying is something he just made up.
Heavily armed and outgunned the police, and that enabled the police to have the justification to arm themselves even more and continue taking a lot of the military surplus in the first place. So I think part of that conversation is about de-escalating the arms race that we're in. And I think a parallel to that is ensuring that state law enforcement agencies, if a policy like that ever was passed, which to be clear, with the current courts, I think you and I both know is not going to happen.
Again, this is a self-report. He self-reported more than once, right? I respect Beto O'Rourke more than this kid. At least Beto just said it. He's like, we're coming for your guns. Done. I'm going to send my... Yep. I'm sending the stack in. We're going to go do it. At least he said it. And Texas said, no, thanks. Right? Hogg would lie. He would say, well, I'm not really, and I'm not. Then he would do it. Hogg is worse than at least Beto just said it. He's like, I'm taking the gun. Okay, I know where you stand. I can vote for that or not. I'm glad Texas did not vote for it. But I respect Beto more than this kid. This kid is just blatantly just lying.
Even if we wanted it to, and also just logistically speaking, it would be very hard to implement and enforce. It's not people going to your door and saying, you have to give us your guns. I don't think that would even be possible, right?
Okay, again, that's not his point. He's right. It's not possible. But if it was, he would absolutely be on board. And he would this kid would never be in that stack. He would order Marines to do it. He would order the sheriff's department to do it. He would order the police force to do it. He would never be in that stack.
With the number of guns that we have in our society today. I think what we're advocating for is an arms race reduction between the state and the civilians.
Not the question at all. He just made all this up.
Not a good one. Because when people talk all the time about the need for guns to fight over a tyrannical government, here's my question to you. How do you define a tyrannical government? Is it the one that we had on January 6th?
Oh, brings up January 6th. Oh, well done. See, he's accustomed. Missy, you hit this perfectly. He's accustomed to being on campuses to where when you just say January 6th, it was like, yeah, whoo, evil Trump. He was ready for that. So he's got that in his back pocket. Are you messing with me? Jan 6, how about that one? No? Okay. Systemic racism. Oh, that didn't work. I'll get you one of these. I'll throw one of these out. It'll work. He tried Jan 6. Didn't get the claps he expected.
Go back and forth here.
No, I'm just stating that as a hypothetical.
No. He's not saying it's a hypothetical. He said it and stopped. That's usually his applause line. I'm not joking. That's usually his applause line. So he knows that. So out of habit, he went, Jan 6. What? Are you not entertained? He didn't believe it. His applause line didn't go. That's what he was trying to do.
Sorry. But that's part of the danger that comes because, when the founders were talking about, a
Okay, now again, he's lost and he's just talking. Right now, the moderator should have stopped him. The moderator should have at that point said, thank you so much. Next question. But the moderator is either new or incompetent or whatever the case may be. He doesn't know what he's doing. So, yes.
Any evidence where if you were convinced to your satisfaction that carrying a gun would make you less safe and you would be more in danger for...
This, by the way, is a brilliant piece. He asked the question, look, is there any evidence that if you saw would make you change your mind at all in any way on guns?
Owning a gun or carrying a gun, would that change your mind a little bit?
If I thought that my owning and carrying a gun made me less safe, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. That wouldn't change my belief that other people have a right to make that choice for themselves. But
isn't that brilliant what Spike just said? He said, what if you found data that showed that if you had a gun, you were actually less safe, right? What if there was data? He's not saying there is, he's saying, what if? Is there something that would change your mind? And Spike's like, yeah, I mean, if I found data that showed I was less safe having a gun, he's like, I wouldn't have one. Yeah, you're right. But it wouldn't change the fact that it's still everybody's right. I could personally say, I don't want a gun. I feel scared of a gun or something, right? And I tell this story often. There was a woman when I was teaching at school years ago. And one of my teachers, she was a 100% pacifist, right? And some of you who've watched the show know I've told the story on my show before. 100% pacifist. She's like, I believe you should never use violence. I would never own a gun. I never would do it ever, ever, ever. And of course, one of the teachers said, well, what if you were being SA'd, assaulted in a special way and bad things about to happen to you? She said, well, even that shit that happened to me, like I was in that situation and I talked my way out of it. And she said, and I don't care. I so think it's wrong and immoral that I would rather go through that trauma than the trauma of killing that person. That's what she said. So I asked her, I said, okay, I get that. I respect that view. I do. And I mean that sincerely. I respect that view. That's where you stand. Let me ask you, would you stop somebody else from putting a bullet in that person? She said, no. Then we're good. Then we're good, right? You won't stop me from using violence to stop that situation from happening from someone else or myself or whatever. You personally said no. Okay, we're good. The Second Amendment is not a second requirement. It's a right. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't want it, you don't have to. Spike is right on the money here.
if I made that choice, if I saw that evidence or came to believe that that were the case, then I absolutely wouldn't carry a firearm. And I guess the reverse of that question for David, yeah.
The question being, is there any evidence that you've thought of, not specific, I'm talking about hypothetical, that, but not unreasonable, that you could be shown or that you would come to believe is true to change your mind,
What would
not
change your mind?
180 degrees from your position right now, but slightly? What would that look like? What would it be?
Well, I mean, it would be a massive amount of research from an independent third party like the CDC or NIH or somebody else.
Note what he said, independent third party, and he mentions the critical aspect, CDC or NIH. That's not an independent third party, but that's how he actually thinks. That is another self-report. If government tells me that it's true, it is true. No one who knows these agencies believes the CDC or NIH are independent third parties. Now, in theory, he's correct. If there were several independent third parties that all came back and said, hey, this was true, I might change my mind. I might think, man, I shouldn't have a gun. This is a bad idea. I might, if there were multiple independent third parties that said that. Doesn't exist now, but I'm open to being wrong. He's only open to being wrong if government tells him so. And it's a self-report. He's telling the truth here. That would be the only way. It wouldn't be because of anything except that. So yes, Gene says, Larry, I've seen that you're a good moderator. It's no small task to get libertarians to stop talking. Yes, you are right. Thank you. Yes. NIH is the National Institute of Health, is what NIH is. So Dave says, but he does have a point about January 6th. I'm not saying he doesn't, Dave. I think you're right. He does, right? If the roles were reversed and it was Democrats storming the Capitol, conservatives would say, oh my God, tyrannical government. I think your point's valid. But again, I go back to the Wikipedia piece. If he was attacking the Wikipedia stuff that Spike was giving him because he honestly thought they were bad or wrong or something was up with the actual sources. As Mike said, right? He has other sources, valid criticism, but he wasn't. He was doing it to discredit. He used Jan 6 to discredit this guy, try to, and to get an applause line. So while your position is valid, what you're saying, David, he wasn't using it for that. Right? To Mike's point, he's bringing it up right now. No, Jan 6 just distraction. Correct. He wasn't using it for let me compare both. He wasn't. He was using it as a distraction. I think you have a valid argument saying which one is which, who was right, who was wrong. You could have that conversation. I'm open to that completely. Let's talk which one is which. But there's no way. There's just no way that you could do this. Whether he would do it. He was not doing this at all. He just wasn't. Not at all. Yes. So Miles says, leftists talk about January 6th, but never talk about the riots that happened. Correct. And another point, right? If he had brought both of those up, I would follow Dave's logic. What if he had brought both of them? So is it when when you're having this or when you're having that, which is which? That also would have been a valid argument. Let's talk about both of those. He didn't do either of them. His point was to discredit. That's what he was trying to do and get an applause line.
Like that, which I know some people are not going to say is independent, but I personally can't think, like, I don't have control over the CDC, right? Like I think part of the problem right now is the people that are gathering a lot of this data, they're funded by sources that are obviously conflicts of interest, whether it's the NRA or whether it's people with certain ideological.
See, it's because those conservative people, you guys can't be trusted, right? That's what he's saying, right? I mean, let's be real. That's what he's saying. You conservatives, I can't trust you guys. So if my lefty friend said yes, then we're good. But I can't trust you conservatives.
On the left or the right.
And the point is, he also is trying to make Spike a righty or Republican. Spike is not a Republican. I don't know if you guys who are watching know this. Spike is a libertarian. He's not a Republican. You're saying, well, the Republicans. Spike's like, good, to hell with them. He doesn't care. Spike has no loyalty to that party. All those people, none.
And we need more empirical data to show what the actual impact is. And unlike a lot of people that I have conversations with, at least the most extreme of them, I don't think Spike is one of them, to be honest with you, but the most extreme of them that I, will say terrible things to me online, on Twitter, and they'll call me awful things. And I say, look, is there anything that I can say to you that would change your?
And he goes right back to dismissing and victimhood. He constantly goes to dismissing and victimhood again and again and again. It is his way. And I just think it's funny how if you're looking at it, you can almost just break it down, right? Let me see if I can grab one more question if I can. He goes back and forth to the same things all the time. Gene says, he seems to think libertarians like the NRA. Yeah, we don't. That's not a thing. Republicans like the NRA. Libertarians don't. That's absolutely true. Yes. Yeah. Mike goes on, he goes, your personal peer for emotional support. Yes. Yep. The scientific libertarian says, Hogg wasn't prepared for a debate that doesn't have whataboutism. Yeah. Yeah, and it's, when you're going Democrat, Republican, left, right, it's a whole lot easier to do the whataboutism. I think you're right. I think he's accustomed to that. Going for a libertarian was difficult for him, right? I don't think he was ready for that. That was difficult for him. I think you're right. All right, let me try one more if I can. Let me see if I can get one more question for us. We should be able to have one more at least, maybe two more.
No, I agree. It's important to not deal with simply theoreticals, but actual data, and also to understand the sources we're working with. This is from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum.org. And specifically, just a point that I wanted to ask one of you about. You can decide who answers, but and I'll make this really quick. So on September 29th and the 30th, 1941, 33,771 Jews were massacred during a two-day period, so less than 48 hours, in what's been termed the Baba Yar massacre outside Kiev, Ukraine. And the question is how we've talked about, I've heard a lot about mass shootings, and we have to consider how do we even define that. But in terms of these very large scale shootings, how should that factor in any policy making in the overall discussion?
You want to do that first?
You-
Okay.
Now,
So
look, Spike's like, you want to touch that one first? Because I'm Jewish and you're going to not be able to say anything. You want to touch that first? And of course, Hogg wants this debate over already. He knows he's lost. He knows he cannot wait for it to be over. So he's like, no, you go. Can we end this? What time is it? That's what Hogg is thinking right now.
first of all, I am Jewish, for whatever
There we
that's
go.
worth. But in order for the Nazi regime to carry out its crimes, there's actually something that many people, my friends on the right, will say they'll say first, Hitler disarmed everyone.
Yeah.
That's actually not true. The Weimar Republic disarmed everyone.
Just because I'm German, you can see the flag. It's the Weimar. I hate Weimar. It's the Weimar Republic. Just because I have issues.
It was a liberal government that disarmed everyone for
Accurate.
their safety. That allowed a right-wing authoritarian to come in and say, oh, everyone's disarmed? Oh, great, I can oppress whomever I want. I want to oppress the Jews and the Roma and homosexuals. But of course, as we know, we would never in America have a liberal government take our rights and then a right-wing authoritarian populist demagogue get back into power and use that against us. That would never happen here. But no, so to address what you said, I think that when you have a disarmed populace, or you have one section of a populace that has been disarmed, and another section that is armed, which we saw many times in this country,
Yes.
what ends up happening is inevitable. It's going to be the powerful majority that is still armed, imposing themselves on the vulnerable minority. That, by the way, is why I believe that there's higher levels of crime and violent crime in inner cities to this day. Because we had a situation where for many, many years, Black people basically weren't allowed to own guns in order to make sure that they couldn't defend themselves. And we see the continuation of the systemic problem that happened there lead into peaceful, law-abiding Black people being less likely to own firearms, which means they're more likely to be victimized. Couple that with lower police response times and all the other things that come with that. And because a unfortunate additional effect to making a minority population vulnerable to the thugs that run the country is that you also make them vulnerable to the thugs that live in their community. And I think that if we were allowing people, peaceful and law-abiding people, to be armed, we'd see far fewer shootings and killings of any kind.
Hit it out of the park again, as always. Josh says, Spike is probably the best libertarian debater who doesn't just dismiss emotions of an opponent. Yes, he can acknowledge, diffuse, respectfully dispute, but he does something else. He uses humor very well, right? One of Spike's skill sets is he uses humor very well. Good thing he does. It is a masterclass, correctly. Dottie says, yes, Weimar. Thank you, Larry. Yes, I'm trying. It is. That's all. Mike says, the Nazis, the N-words, are leftists. Spike is wrong. It's not true. They're both, right? And I could spend a lot of time on that, but they are both. If you are a National Socialist, you are both. You are right-wing in one area and left in the other. And it is because once you make it national, you then divvy things up, right? That's the difference. You divvy things up. A socialist is just everybody. A National Socialist says, no, this group gets X, this group gets Y. They shift, and it does become both of those together, which is why people fight on this all the time, because both are correct. So let me see what Mr. Hogg has to say.
Well, I obviously don't agree with that. I think having more people in our society, the part that I don't agree with in particular is this idea that having more guns out there is just going to make us inevitably safer for the reasons that I stated earlier.
That's not what Spike said at all. That's not what he said. And because he has no answer, right? He has no answer to any of this.
I mean, I've seen so many customer service disputes where I know it would have been not unlikely that a shooting could have happened there if both.
So he honestly believes that because he saw a customer service dispute, that if those people had guns, there would be a shootout. First off, there may have been guns there. He doesn't know. He's just making these things up and trying to get people to believe it. He earlier told us that he thought teachers would shoot our students.
Individuals were armed, right? Like there's so many instances like this that we see all the time, whether it's road rage, whether it's bar fights, whether it's anything.
The guy was talking about Jews being massacred in Ukraine. This shows the ignorance and that Hogg has. He doesn't even know he's out of his league, right? I said that Spike's a heavyweight. Hogg's maybe. I'm stretching when I'm calling him a middleweight. And the sad part is he's really popular. You would think the guy with all this popularity would have realized that you got to get better at this, right? And why would you go up against Spike? I mean, it's terrible.
Like that. And if you add guns into that situation, it's going to make it more lethal. And that's not even having a discussion of whether or not we should have guns in our society or not. That's not what this conversation is about.
Guns in our society or not?
Clear. It's not saying that nobody in our society by any means should have guns. That is not.
Nobody said that. So it's not what we're saying. Nobody has said that. You, again, strawmanning, making things up. Nobody said that.
What I am saying, to be clear. What we're talking about here are theoreticals in the United States that are not even necessarily really germane to what I am saying.
He literally said a left-wing group and then a right-wing group. What he actually meant is one party does something bad and the other party takes advantage of it, which is the biggest piece, right? Why do I want laws for my guy or gal that I like to be able to have the power? And then the next guy comes to the power. I don't like that guy or gal, so now I want to end all the laws. No, right? No. Mike brings up a very valid. Mike, I think you have hit it. This is kind of what Missy was saying. He's saying Hogg doesn't need to be good when progressives throw him money for doing nothing but spouting emotions. That's kind of right. I'm going to give you a little bit of a nuance on that. It isn't spouting emotions. It's spouting the talking points, right? Say the words that we like to hear. Say the things that we like to say. I think that versus the emotional. I mean, it is, but it's not just emotion. It's the specific sound bites that they want to hear, right? They want to hear, Jan 6, Trump. They want to hear that badly. He'll say it, they'll clap.
And also,
he doesn't even know what he's saying anymore, right? I mean, he's just like, I gotta figure something out. I don't know what I'm gonna figure out here. I gotta figure something out. All right, let me grab if I can. I think is this the last question here? He talked a lot. The problem is he talked a lot on nothing. Is this it? Let me try this one. Hold on, did I get it right? All right, yeah, let me try this one here. And we'll see how this one, let's see how this one works. All right. I think this is a good one. If I get it right, this should be our last question. I think it's the right one. I hope I did it right. We'll see. If I didn't, you'll get mad at me.
Trump opposes Pfizer as well. Whereas you cited our state motto, live free or die, in claiming that the ultimate harm is death. And whereas in fact, our state motto, fully spoken, was a toast by General John Stark, live free or die, death is not the worst of evils.
Yes.
He said that precisely because a loss of our natural rights and our constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property was a fate far worse than death. And whereas you have asserted that we are in a representative democracy, we are indeed in a representative democracy in Congress, supporting a constitutional republic of which the Constitution is unassailable. You have asserted several times just in the last few minutes in the answers.
All right. I might, as a moderator, Mike, I think you're right. I might have let this guy talk a little bit more. I might have. Oh, Joe's saying no. Oh, yeah. All right. Maybe I'll see if I can get her too. All right. Anyway, maybe I will, Joe. I see what you're saying. Let me see. Let me finish this one up, though. This is good. I might have let him talk a bit. I mean, this is good. I might have let him go. I might not have shut this guy down.
To the other questioners, that you don't believe in coming and taking all of our weapons. You asserted during the main part of the debate in response to one of the questions that you, in fact, are for people's right to self-defense. Would you tell us then, if you consider it important that we can defend ourselves, then who exactly is going to be allowed to defend themselves and who is not? Are you going to be limiting this and limiting their gun ownership by age, by race, by creed, by illegality, by patriotism? What is it that you are intending to do other than to take people's guns away?
Look, I feel like there's a lot of tension in the room right now. I don't know about you all.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of tension. Yeah, I think so. He can't wait. Look, this tension, look at the smile on Spike's face. There's no tension in Spike. He knows. He was literally just toying with him. He was toying with him, playing, tapping him, boom, 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 tension. And Hogg is just getting smacked around, trying to fight, getting smacked, running around the ring, getting just slaughtered. Now he's like, well, there's tension. There's no tension. There's tension in you because you're getting your butt whipped.
What I'm advocating for, I'm not going to claim to be Spike said earlier he's not an expert on this. Like, I obviously came into this because of something horrific that happened to me when I was 17 years old.
Bingo. Right to victim. There's tension, right? He began literally with, I'm a victim, don't beat me up. And he will end with, I'm a victim, don't beat me up. Both.
I've been compelled to act on what I believe on, which is that, like I've said repeatedly throughout this debate, all I would want is for the United States federal government to have the same laws in all 50 states as Massachusetts has. And I know that you guys don't agree with that. That is fine. I can respect that you don't agree with that, sir. I totally can.
Hey, please, come on.
I can totally respect that you don't agree with that.
Again, that is condescending. He doesn't actually respect that. He's not going to disagree because you're not smart. He called everybody stupid earlier in the debate. Remember that? More than once. He called us stupid and emotional more than once. He's saying what he wants is common sense, not you radicals. Now, he goes, I can respect that. What he's saying is, I get that you're not as smart as me. That's what he actually means. I understand you're not as smart as I am. I get you don't know the stuff that I know. I know you don't. You haven't been through what I've been through, that I'm cooler than you, and I'm a victim, so you can't get mad at me.
And I would hope that we can have a respectful conversation.
No one said you couldn't.
Of course, and I thank you for your question. The point that I'm getting at is that's just what I want, right? And there, of course, you obviously do not agree with that, and that is okay. And
he has not answered anything that the guy said, nothing. He's just blabbering.
I think that for me to have a longer conversation with you about that, about what the different viewpoints are and everything, is something that, could happen, but it's not.
Okay, that's what this debate was. This debate's 2 hours long. You probably should have said it during the debate. This was the time to do it. You don't have to have a conversation about, this stuff. No, you could have just said it here.
One where we're going to be able to spend the next 2 hours debating the nuances of American constitutional history, gun violence prevention laws.
Not about any of that.
Things like that. What I would like to kind of...
Okay, if we did that, let's assume for a moment, he says it's like he knows. We have to debate the Constitution. He would look like an idiot. All he knows is sound bites and the fact that he's a victim. That's all he knows. He would look terrible if that happened.
Because I think this is probably the last question. What I would like to end on is
happy
look,
about.
I'm not... I feel like there's this sense that has been created since Parkland that I'm some kind of totalitarian that wants to take everybody's,
There's this sense that has been created, right? So again, he is not responsible for the fact that he has been out there screaming and yelling this stuff for years. It's just a sense that has been created. I'm just some kind of victim, right? I'm just some kind of victim. It's something that happened. Oh, I don't know poor me. He literally says that. But haven't you been literally screaming and jumping up and down about these things forever? Haven't you been talking? Haven't you asked other people to do things and attacked other people? Haven't you called us all stupid? Hasn't he done all of those things? I think he's done all of those things. So, yeah, it wasn't you did it, my friend.
I'm just a guy.
Aww.
I'm just a guy that doesn't want what happened in Parkland to happen again.
I'm just a guy. I'm just a victim. That's
Do I have
it.
all the answers to that? No, I'm not going to act like I do. Have I been wrong in the past? I definitely have. I'm sure Spike will admit that he's been wrong in the past on different things.
On occasion.
At times, right?
I've had times, but...
And what I'm getting at is that I think that the current course that we've been on throughout American history of just having the same answer where we put more guns into this situation, I don't agree that that's necessarily the right answer. Now, I don't think that that means that there shouldn't be any guns in our society, nor do I think that would be logistically, constitutionally, or practically possible.
See, he always has to say that because his base actually wants to confiscate all the guns. That's true. I don't know what Hogg actually thinks, if he even has his own thought process. I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, maybe he believes, maybe he doesn't. All I know is he knows his base is about to take it out. So what does he do? Well, it's not feasible. I mean, we would confiscate all the guns. We would have the cops can take everything, but they might all get shot, so it's not feasible. But I would do it. Of course he would. That's where his head actually is. John says, I'm sure the people who paid him speaking fees thinking he was an expert would like their refund. Jamie says, I'm just a guy who can't answer a question. Also accurate. Well done, Jamie. That's amazing. Well done.
Even if I was advocating for that. But what I am saying is I think it's time for us to do something different. God forbid.
Different.
Because I think the current reality that we face right now, the reality, not the hypothetical, but the reality of gun violence in America being at such a high rate is something that can't just be addressed by addressing the systemic problems that drive it. We also need to address the fact that somebody like the shooter at my high school is still able in many states to get a gun like the AR-15, despite threatening to shoot up a high school. That's all I'm advocating for. And for those that don't agree with me,
nothing else.
I want to say this to you because I feel like a lot of these questions were more pointed at me.
Because you wouldn't answer any of them. And Missy, you were so right on this. You caught this. This is right. He was so accustomed to going to colleges to where everyone's giving him applause lines. He's beating up the Republican who's next to him or the conservative that's next to him, and they're all attacking him and calling him an evil warmonger or whatever, right? Whatever that thing is. And now he's not there, and he was not ready for this. Wow.
I respect you. I respect your concerns. They are valid in many ways. You have a right to express them, and I respect that. I want to have that conversation with you. But what I would urge us to understand is that further arguing about this, instead of, what I wish we could have done more of in this debate, was talk about what we can agree on, right? And focus on those things, because I think there are things that
you haven't answered the question. So how can you agree on?
Can do. But what I would urge, if I can, I guess in my last word, and Spike, you can obviously have your closing remarks after this. It's for us to have some more nuance around this conversation and understanding that it's not easy for me to be up here having this conversation, obviously, after what I've gone through. The threats that my family's faced, that I've faced.
Victim. He asked you a specific question, and you spent 5 minutes talking about what a victim you are. And look, I want to be clear. I don't want to sound like an idiot. An idiot. Well, I could say an idiot. Not that. I was like a bad guy. I'm not saying he's not a victim. He is. He was. But he has chosen to take that and to create a persona and to be an activist and an advocate in the public. Right? That's where he's gone. He could have chosen to do something locally. He could have chosen to just deal with his grief in any other way. He could have chosen to start a nonprofit. There are many things, but he chose to come out, hoop and holler, attack. He chose this. That's why I'm saying you can't choose this and just be like, I'm a victim. If he stayed at home in his own world with a job and you would have a Spike came to his work and started yelling at him, Spike would be wrong. He could go, I'm a victim. What's wrong with you? I'm trying to live my life. Leave me alone. Makes sense. He's not doing that. He's showing what a smug person is because he's not in a position of authority and power right now. If he was, he would be so dismissive towards Spike right now. It'd be crazy. Yes, that's all it's saying. So Thomas is a great one. I like this. He says, dismissive, I respect, usually means he doesn't, just no counter argument. Correct. And he said it like 14 times. Correct. Yes. Phil says, the reason why Hogg is not respected in debate is because he's incredibly dismissive. Yes. Condescending. Yes. Avoids answering questions. Yes. Anything that questions his narrative, it's a huge letdown in debate performance. Agreed. Agreed. This is not the right answer. He really has made us look bad. And it's funny, I was saying this before. I called up Spike before this. And I was like, hey, man, if you need a debate prep guy, if you need me to prep you for the debate, I'll play the Hogg guy with you some back and forth to prep you for it. He's like, nah. I understand why he was like, nah, I get it. There was no need. Literally, there was no need. He had this down. Yes. Yep, done. Absolutely. Ken says he got to pick his opponent in debate. He chose wrong. I'm not sure. He might have chose right in a way that this guy won't beat him up at least. It's something. So, yes. Scientific Libertarian says, David Hogg, I respect you, dumb mother effers. Accurate. That's what he's actually saying. That's literally what he's saying. Correct. Mike Voss says, Larry, you and I could easily sleepwalk through a Hogg debate. and colleges won't pay us as experts. Correct. Literally the worst expert I've ever heard speaking on their topic. Mike, that's my point. There are people who could have done better and could have given Spike a run for the money. 100%. Imagine someone like a Sam Cedar. Sam Cedar's a master at when it comes to debating libertarians. He's gonna do all the things and knows the fancy footwork on top of it. That would have been something, that we have to work on. But this, oh my God. Yes, just terrible. So anyway, Miles says, David Hogg is a victim, which is using what happened to him to push an agenda. And my point exactly, Miles. He put himself in his position, right? He put himself in his position. He's decided to take a step to the front. He's decided to be the guy who's screaming with the bullhorn, mic in his hand. A lot of people have tragedy affect them. He's the only guy who's had loss. He's the only guy who's had tragedy. He isn't, right? A lot of people probably watching right now, you probably had loss or tragedy in your life. You didn't choose to say, I'm going to go up and attack the system. I'm going to attack everybody. Look, I ran for office. I get yelled at to this day about stuff. People still insult me at what I did. But you know what? I chose that. I could have just sat back and just been damn system and been mad and gone to Libertarian Party events and just yelled within my little echo chamber. I could have done that, but I didn't. I stepped out and I get beaten up sometimes. You step out, you get beaten up. Spike stepping out. People on Spike too. You step out, you're doing it, right? That's the issue, right? That's the issue. Hair the Dog says, Hogg has made being a victim a personality and is grifting off it, so that's all he knows. Oh, it's a good point. This is my earlier point, which I think you may be right. He may not believe or could believe any of this. I don't know. This could just be, this is my first job. This is how I get paid. So, yeah, maybe. John Chow says, step out, get beat. Truth. Yes. Yes. I did not have to run for office. I did. I don't have to have this stupid show. I do. I get yelled at. Yes, I get people see me when I go out, when I do a lot of my stuff live, right? I go out to a live event. People aren't always happy to see me. I don't have to go out. I choose to. Price I pay.
Comes with that. But I do know if I'm genuinely committed to addressing this issue that we need to have conversations.
I'm gonna move
what I don't want to do is I don't want to.
Let's move forward a bit. Let me pop it. Yeah, there we go. Hold on. Sorry. I am gonna put this piece back out again.
I had to with you.
I'm sorry.
I've never done one of these before, so. But thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be
Thank
here.
you for having this conversation, and thank you to those of you who don't agree with me for being here and listening.
Here we go.
I respect you, and I want to figure out what we can get done on this issue.
Keep saying it.
because
Yes.
it's
He
not-
knows he lost. He should have never done this. This was a mistake. Josh says, we love your stupid show, Larry. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. I
Well, that's the
appreciate
right
that.
thing. I don't think any of us wants gun violence to continue. We just have different ways of figuring out how to address it, but there is some alignment.
Yeah, I was not joking when I lamented that this wasn't a longer discussion where David and I could focus not just on the debate questions at hand, but on the things that I think there are probably quite a few things that we agree on there. And that actually, in finding out what we agree on, might be able to help us address some of the things we disagree on. This is unfortunately the nature of these types of debates, but
Yes.
I'm glad that you came. It means a lot to me that you came. I also clearly, and I don't think anyone in here wants another Parkland or another
course.
Uvalde or another any of these. And I'm glad neither of us got into the bad faith tactic of accusing the other of wanting something.
He did, though, kind of. He's like, well, no one is saying that. So, yes, he did kind of do that. Let me see if I can grab maybe Lily Tank Williams as the last one before I wrap this up, if I could. Before I do that, though, I want to grab a couple more comments, too. Guys, if you like this show, then click the button that is like. Click the button that is the thumb that is up. Click that button. Please do so. If you're watching this on X, repost this right now. Don't think, repost it right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to support the show, you may. You can click on Larry Sharpe YouTube and super chat me if you want to hook me up. You can also do the most important thing. You can become a member. $5 a month, $49. Click that join button. Help me out so I can do more of these. I'm doing like 7 this week. I'm not even joking. I'm like 7 live shows, and I'm doing 3 other shows. I'm doing Austin Peterson's show tomorrow. I'm doing an edible show, believe it or not. I'm doing Fina Benoan's show coming up here on Friday, and I have another AMA on Friday. So I'm doing lots of stuff for you guys. Tons and tons of content. Become a member, damn you. Do it. Or click the like button. Just do it. It does matter. If you don't do it, I'm going to say you don't like me, and that's going to make me angry, and I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry tonight. You're going to make me cry if you don't click that like button. So please, click it. Please. Libertarian, Scientific Libertarian says, oh, I liked it, but not because you told me to. Okay. All right. You know what? Don't like it. I don't like it. It's important. Yes, absolutely. So Phil says, interesting piece here. Phil says, I lived through a school shooting. Hey, Phil, haven't seen you in a while. Nobody died, but it seemed to confirm the beliefs people already had before. People who like guns before wish they had a gun. People who hate guns think gun control would have stopped the shooting. People draw from experience what they want. That is very nice. That is really good. I think you're totally right, Phil. It's really insightful. And you going through it. Exactly. And you had a choice. You went through it. You could have become Mr., I don't know, lobbyist victim if you wanted to, or you could have gone and lived your life. I know. You went and lived your life. Absolutely. Yes. David says, we love you, Larry. I always click the like button. Thank you. I need it all day. Yes, yes, yes. So yes. Sue Urban says, what time will you be on AP show, Larry? Is it live pre-recorded? It is live, 8:30 Eastern. Check out his show. It's called the Wake Up America Show. It's on AP for Liberty. Check that out tomorrow morning, 8:30. So yes, it is live. So you can actually call in stuff. So all those good things if you want to. I'm going to see if I can find really quick Lily Tang Williams. She actually had something to say here. And her, for those of you who don't know Lily Tang, I love her. She actually originally ran in Colorado, originally as a Libertarian. She has since then become, I think, a Republican now. I think she's a Republican now, if not mistaken. She's in New Hampshire now. So she's now this is now her home state. So, but she was in Colorado when I first met her. She actually survived Mao. Yes, she survived Mao. And no wonder she's a Libertarian. Surprise. So see if I can grab her right now.
A lot of things like that. Anyway, I don't want to take up any more.
Hi, my name is Lily Tang Williams,
Sure.
and welcome to my Live Free or Die state. Actually, I am a Chinese immigrant who survived communism. And under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold communism to them, and 20 million people died, murdered during his Cultural Revolution. So my question to you, David, is that can you guarantee me, a gun owner tonight, our government in the US, in DC, will never become a tyrannical government? Can you guarantee that to me?
There's no way I can ever guarantee that any government will not be tyrannical.
Well, then the debate on gun control is over, because I will never give up my guns. Never. And you should go to China to see how gun control works for dictatorship of CCP. Because,
Can I-
everybody is enslaved, so they cannot fight back.
Can I respond to you?
She literally just went, okay, mic drop. That was it. And you just heard Spike laugh. Well done. You just heard Spike laugh. Just so good.
I am extremely sorry that you've gone through that and witnessed that.
He goes right through
The
emotion.
collectivization of agriculture, for one, the Cultural Revolution are horrific things that never should have happened, ever. And I would
Okay, no one asked about those things. I think you're right. It shouldn't have happened. What she asked about is, we didn't have guns then to stop it.
do everything in my power to stop that from ever happening in the United States of America. I'm not advocating for you having your gun taken away. I'm genuinely not. I know it may
Yes,
be
you
hard
are.
for you to believe that.
Yes, because you said you would take them away. You literally said the platform of your organization says mandatory government buybacks, not voluntary. Not voluntary. Your platform says mandatory gun buybacks. So that's confiscation. The mandatory part, that's the confiscation part. In case you didn't know that, Mr. Hogg, that's the mandatory part. You can't do that. So yeah, 100%, you are saying that. And you said you would do it, but right now you just can't. You have said it more than once.
But I'm not advocating for any law-abiding citizen to have that happen to them. What I believe is that the real danger that we have in America right now is all of these people that increasingly believe that elections are not real, that are denying the results of them, being heavily armed, and repeatedly saying that they need to overthrow a government because they've been fed lies and misinformation.
So again, he goes right back to see Jan 6. That's where he goes to. Why? Because if he says this in most places, what does he get? Missy, you were so right. Well done. He gets, yeah, it's the election deniers. We got to get rid of their guns. That's the applause that he usually gets, right? Of course.
That is really what I fear, becoming a tyrannical government. I also fear the fact that in some ways we've had multiple violations of our rights, not, excluding everything in this conversation, just going to the Fourth Amendment in the Patriot Act or the FISA Act, the Foreign Intelligence and Surveillance Acts. Those are severe violations of our civil rights and liberties that.
Okay. But then deflection like there's no tomorrow. Empathy, deflection, great question. And look, the reality of it is, I never thought I'd say this even more than one thing. I respect Beto better. Beto O'Rourke is better. He just says, I'm taking your guns. At least he just says it. And you know where you stand, right? I always say this, if I got a statist, I got a socialist, I got a whatever, the bad thing, the national socialists, you know the ones I'm talking about. Those people, the ones that you would not see coming, those, wear the armband. Put the hood on. Let me see you. You're a gun grabber? Say it. At least I know where you are. And I can decide if it's worth it or not. He's being disingenuous.
Personally,
He's
I
lying.
view right now are a far greater threat to our freedom than red flag laws. And we need to address that because it's enabled the mass surveillance of the American people that is illegal and a disgusting violation of our
But
civil
he
rights
hasn't,
and
he
our civil
dodged it
liberties
completely.
as well. I never want to have what happened in China happen in the United States ever. And I am truly sorry that you ever had to witness that and go through that. And I don't want that to happen. But personally, what I believe is that having stronger laws like Massachusetts is not going to enable that government to come to power. What will enable it is things like the Patriot Act and FISA and other similar violations to our civil rights.
Dodged every question. And I know somebody wanted, that's why I put that one in there. I wanted to make sure that was there so we all saw that. So yes, let me see if I can grab some of these if I can. Phil goes on to say, Quintus Fabius, the guy who defeated Hannibal, did so by delaying and avoiding direct conflict. The Fabian socialists in England pioneered that tactic of gradual change to control of elite institutions. Where have I seen that before, Phil? Yes. David says, I can never respect Hogg. It sounds like he wants to genocide Trump supporters. Yes. I had to use that word now. I'm going to get demonetized. But yes, you're actually right. Yes, absolutely. Josh says, sad yet inspiring to see immigrants remind us of what has made America unique. Wow. Josh, very good. You're right. Right? It's funny that an immigrant has to come to America and talk to us and show us what America's like, right? Right. The immigrant had to school Hogg. Hogg's born here. Willie Tang had to show up and say, let me show you what being American's about. Let me tell you what it's about, because I came here from China. Let me tell you what that is. Absolutely. Mike says, red flag laws lead directly to China communism. It's all accusation equals guilt and punishment without due process. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Jamie says, the woman was a rock star of the debate. Loved her. Yep. Nikki says, the Fabian soldiers are still here, bro. Yeah, absolutely. Yuri Bezmenov said in a 1984 interview, when he mentions that it'll take young, soft-headed Americans getting knocked on their butts to realize that the government doesn't care about their people. True. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. There were some questions about tomorrow. Let me see if I can grab those real fast. Oh, also, Joe says, that's good. A Chinese immigrant, obviously pro-communist freedom hater. Yeah, not at all, Joe. And you know that. I know you're joking. But yeah, that's actually very true. She is amazing. I thought she was amazing for a long time. She still is amazing. She has been amazing for a while. So yes, Dave says 8:30 Eastern tomorrow. Yes, absolutely. 8:30 Eastern. I do appreciate that. Yes, that is true. If you guys can be around tomorrow, I 100% would like that. All right, so let me grab one more idea if I could. Guys, click the like button. I know I say it all the time. Please do so. If you're watching on Twitter, please repost it. If you are on YouTube, Larry Sharpe YouTube, you can always become a member if you like, or super chat and support the show. All good either way. I hope that you guys enjoyed my little back and forth. I grabbed a couple big pieces showing you how he was talking, what he was doing, and kudos to Spike. Well done. Killed it as I knew he would. I did not think Hogg would be so bad. I knew Spike would be good. I did not realize how bad Hogg would be. A part of me feels bad for him. A part of me says, dude, you put yourself here. I don't know, right? I don't know what you were thinking when you put yourself here. Anyway, I will be tomorrow. I have so much going on this week. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., I'm on Austin Peterson's show, Wake Up America. That's on YouTube. I'll be interviewing Mike White tomorrow at 3 p.m., who is a libertarian running in Arkansas. Marco Kepi, who is a Republican running out of New York City, 7 p.m. I'll be on Fina Bonoan's stream at 2 p.m. all Eastern on Friday. I'll be on the Square Table Degenerates. I'll be them at 5:30, and I'll be doing an AMA, 8 p.m. on Friday. So 6 more shows this week. See what I'm doing? 6 more shows this week that I'll be live on. You guys can come yell at me, beat me up, whatever you want. Okay, call in, whatever the thing is. Do all the things you want. I'm trying to show you that I haven't given up. I'm still trying to fight. Please join me if you can. Most of that stuff you can see on YouTube. Some of it you'll see on Twitter or on X. Thank you so much for giving me a chunk of everything. Oh, one more thing before I say that. One more thing. When this is over, please do me a favor. Whatever you're watching this on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, whatever you're watching it on, go back after this is over and leave a comment. Go back and leave a comment. Why? Because of the Al Gore rhythms. They like it very much. Go back, leave a comment. I'll even respond. Maybe. I'll respond. I will. Guys, thank you so much for giving me a chunk of your evening. I will see you all very soon.